All right, everyone. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. It is great to be here. I'm in a good mood and ready to talk some college football because it's been a while. And I'm in a great mood despite my beautiful, precious kids leaving today, going back to their residences. But it's been great spending 4 days or so with them. So that was the highlight of my week, my month, my year. And so while that was a downer, I certainly was looking forward to, for the first time since over the weekend on Saturday, really locking in on some college football this afternoon. So there were two games in particular that I was interested in watching today. It was that Clemson-Kentucky matchup. Wanted to see that. And then, sure, Notre Dame, Oregon State. I just thought that there were a lot of flaws in the game, in the matchup leading into it, obviously with the quarterback situation at both schools, Jonathan Smith going and leaving Oregon State for Michigan State. The Memphis-Iowa State game, shoot, I'll watch any college football game, of course, but I didn't anticipate that being some kind of sterling affair that meant much. And then, of course, we had this Cotton Bowl matchup between Ohio State and Missouri. And because of the Buckeyes' investment from a personnel standpoint, in which everybody was playing outside of Kyle McCord, of course, he's at Syracuse, and Marvin Harrison Jr., who is protecting his top 5 to 10 draft status in the NFL. And then, of course, few key injuries on the Ohio State defense. And expected that to be a really good matchup between Ohio State and Missouri. So I was looking forward to today's games. And we will take your calls in just a second. We are going to run down where I stand on all this. So Clemson is a 9-4 football team that won 5 consecutive games against largely bad football teams or marginal football teams. Nice win today. It was an entertaining game, by far the most entertaining game of college football today. College football kind of let us down today. It wasn't a great day of college football. 2 of the games were rather lousy. Of course, the Sun Bowl was a complete snoozer. This game tonight, for college football fans that like to see offense, it was a snoozer. I saw those comments all over social media about how bad this game was tonight. And I get that. I get the point, but it was an extremely close game, of course. So it was at least competitive. It wasn't like Notre Dame blowing out Oregon State. But that Clemson-Kentucky game, I enjoyed it. I'm still trying to get a read on where Clemson really stands, where this Clemson program stands, because really this is what we're looking at with these games that aren't college football playoff games. So I know I'm anticipating it, going to get questioned and going to receive a lot of comments about Ohio State and the condition of the program. Those critics and those haters are going to be out there, and rightfully so, to a certain extent. It's really not reasonable. There's really nothing wrong there. But because they lost this game, there are going to be people that take their shots. And again, that goes with the territory. It's not necessarily fair, but it goes with the territory. Let's understand this, though. Keep this point in mind. Everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean 90-some% of college football nation, keeps saying that these games are meaningless, that these games outside the playoff are meaningless. They don't matter. And then when an elite team loses or their rival team loses, what happens? That game suddenly matters. Right? That game suddenly matters. It suddenly is important. And that suddenly is cause for concern, and to just be able to project and predict the demise of that program because of that one result, which is, of course, is ridiculous. So we are, as many people, I've heard this comment, I won't try to repeat it in regards to other shows in another industry, in another topic. We try to fly in the face of groupthink and stupidity and ignorance. That's what we do here at the Voice of College Football. But back to Clemson, because I think Clemson, this day was more about Clemson than any of the programs that took the field today. It was the most about Clemson and then Missouri. Iowa State could really use a bowl win. They're the type program that needs that kind of momentum and that look. Certainly for a group of five like Memphis out of the American Conference to emerge and win a pretty dominant game against Iowa State, lead 19-0, and really nurse home a 2-score win the entire game. That game was not close in any such way. So we can talk about the Big 12. We had a live stream earlier tonight with our buddy Shane, who gets together twice a week. Folks, mark it down, Thursday and Friday night with Shane and Joey on the Big 12 Fan Zone on Thursday and the West Virginia Fan Zone on Friday. And we talked about the Big 12, and I had my certain thoughts about what this bowl season is telling us about the Big 12. But this day was number one about Clemson and number two about Missouri. And then it was probably number three about the Notre Dame quarterback position and number four about the Ohio State quarterback position. All right, we will take your calls. I tweeted out, or whatever you call it now, I posted on X earlier today while watching Cade Klubnik. Did this Clemson quarterback improve this season? Did he improve? To me, he didn't. I'm not watching every Clemson game. I'm not charting the passes, just watching, and I'm looking over and over and over, and I'm seeing still questionable decision-making, still missing targets. And every quarterback misses throws, but I'm talking about reasonable throws. Fairly consistently missing those throws. Thinking, is Cade Klubnik? This could be a great topic for the offseason. We've got quarterback situations, whether that particular coach and team believe that to be an issue or a concern or are going to address it or not. We can certainly talk about it and consider it an issue or something that needs to be addressed, whether that be at Clemson, Ohio State, or elsewhere. All right. We appreciate y'all being here. The Amazon links in the description section of all the videos everywhere, including this one. So you grab the link that says Amazon in big caps right next to it, and please put it somewhere where you will remember it. And when you do the Amazon shopping, there you go. Just grab the Amazon link. And the Amazon empire does not need to be grown and built any further. I heard some kind of ridiculous statistic this week about Amazon. It was something crazy about basically our nation is controlled by this place. So we would like to actually benefit from their control. That's what we'll do. So if you buy something worth $100, let's say, send me 3. There you go. All right. So we're going to talk, of course, Ohio State, Missouri, Clemson, Kentucky, and the other bowl games. And then we will look forward to Saturday's games. All right. You guys want to hear some calls, and we'll take them in order. We got Mike on the line. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
I am doing great.
Well, let's get all the family stuff out of the way.
Except again, yeah, that's that's my downer today is that I don't want to brag on my kids, but I enjoy my kids and I'm not used to being away from them, but I have been for the last year and a half. So anyway, yes, talking about football.
Well, I was hoping to kind of like, get you all warm and fuzzy, talking about the kids and family and, Christmas time, before I officially unleash hell.
Okay.
So, I mean, have a good Christmas, have a good break away from doing the football stuff on here. And
yes, I did. Yeah, you don't need to warm me up for your unleashing, Mike.
Well, like I say, I guess for start, I mean, this feels kind of karmic because one, I remember a few years back, and by a few I mean probably 7 or 8, whenever the Big Ten going into this game was undefeated and the SEC was winless. And I remember
going into what game? Oh, into this game.
Yeah.
Into the Ohio State Missouri game. Gotcha.
Yeah.
3-0, 0-2. Yes.
Yeah. And Ohio State was giving us a healthy dose of crap because I can't remember the year. It was I'm trying to think. It was about what 7-8 years ago. Big Ten was like I think 8-1, and
Yes.
the one loss was when Michigan blew that
Yes.
16-point lead to South Carolina, and we
Yes.
caught so much from that.
Yes.
So I feel like giving up a little bit. Now we were never going to go winless outside of Ohio State because, I mean, there's not a prayer of Wisconsin beating LSU. But that aside, um, did Ohio State turn into Iowa or something?
You understand I'm going to fire back.
Oh yeah, please feel free.
Okay, keep going. Do you have anything else to? There's a lot of ammunition here. There's a lot to go on right here.
Oh, and I'm eager to hear it all.
Am I actually taking criticism from a Michigan fan about postseason performance?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
I posted something tonight during the college football playoff era. New Year's 6 results. Ohio State 7-4. Now we're talking big bowl games. New Year's 6 results. Ohio State 7-4. Michigan 0-4.
Yep. Now, keep in mind, that we've had some questionable games, but I mean, not all those games.
And Ohio State hasn't. Clemson 2019 and Georgia last season.
Okay.
So Ohio State's could be even better. Michigan is better than Ohio State. They have won 3 years in a row. They've got 3 consecutive Big Ten championships. That's what they can be certainly proud and brag about and trash talk to me day and night, all season, off season, long until next season. But postseason, yeah.
Yeah,
there better be a win on January 1st. Otherwise, I don't want to hear about postseason comparisons between the two. And obviously, that's not going to erase everything, but that's all that can be done about the current situation is what J.J. McCarthy, Jim Harbaugh, and the rest of the Maize and Blue will do against Alabama on January 1st.
And I tell you what, even though Alabama's a little bit better than Missouri, if Alabama holds us to 3 points, I will stand the dunk tank and you can take your shots.
Is J.J. McCarthy not going to play and Alex Orji not going to play that game? Now, you cannot compare in any way Ohio State taking its best player off the field, Marvin Harrison Jr., its best linebacker off the field, Tommy Eichenberg, and playing with a third-string quarterback that has attempted 5 passes. Are you going to take a quarterback who has attempted 5 passes in his career and play Alabama?
Well, I mean, I go on the other Ohio State, like your Menace and Scoop over there with Kirk Barton, and they're talking like, Kienholz is a perfect, I guess, placeholder for Aaron Norland, who's going to be, the next great thing at Ohio State. But they bumped up Kienholz plenty of times.
Well, he could be a tremendous quarterback. I saw a lot out of him tonight. Absolutely. I thought he was fine tonight, but this is the first game he's ever played, and he wasn't prepared to play in the game. He wasn't prepped. And for anybody who says, well, Ryan Day sucks because he didn't prepare his team, and you got to prepare for all situations. We all know that the starting quarterback, who in this case wasn't even a starting quarterback, he's the backup quarterback, that he's given all the reps, especially when he is a backup quarterback who didn't play the entire season, basically.
Yeah.
So Ohio State lost the game fair and square, but let's understand. I will state this, and whoever can say whatever about it. Ohio State's a better team than Missouri, but they were playing with a quarterback who'd attempted 5 passes in his career against a quarterback in Brady Cook that had 800 pass attempts in his career. And the best player on either team didn't play. But that's who you got to play with. And Ohio State still had more than a serviceable team. They still had most of their starting lineup on both sides of the ball. So they lost the game fair and square. But let's understand, that's not the Ohio State team that's going to show up next season. And again, most of the people that are going to take shots at Ohio State are the same people that they call these games meaningless. So are they meaningless or are they not meaningless? And I'm not directing that to you, Mike, but I'm directing that to 90% of the people out there, because like is the case most of the time, they change their argument based on what happens and based on their whim for the day because of what fits They don't hold to their argument consistently across the board.
And I guess, I mean, this is just one guy, but my opinion is that to fans, the games always matter, 100% every game. Now, as far as everybody else, it seems like to programs, the big part is the extra, was it 15 practices? That seems to be the big plus for making a bowl game. Now, players, obviously not, because there's a lot of opt-outs. I mean, maybe if you're a guy that's like, like a high, or mid to high second, low third round draft pick, and you're trying to play yourself up into first round status, a really good, showing at a quality bowl might, put you up there. But I mean, it's obvious that it matters more to fans than it does players.
And I can already anticipate that my words are going to get twisted, and I know that I'm going to receive all sorts of comments that I made excuses and so forth. No, we're just telling the truth and laying out the facts. I'm not making excuses. Missouri won the game. They were better than Ohio State. I think Ohio State should have taken advantage of some situations and should have been able to not pull away, but had a bigger lead. But Missouri was the much better team in the final 10 minutes of the game. That's when the game was decided. And, but again, I would just like people to be consistent with, do these games matter or don't they matter? I keep hearing from people that they don't matter, that nothing matters but the playoff. It matters to me in that we judge these programs historically on wins versus top 10 competition in bowl games, and we look at bowl records and all of that historically. Now, maybe that'll change because we always cared about bowl games in the past, and maybe because of the way things are changing, we'll no longer 20 years from now look back and say, does it matter what Jim Harbaugh's bowl record was if they weren't playoff games, and so forth and so on. But we've always cared about bowl games in the past. And did I want Ohio State to win tonight? Of course I wanted them to win. But I'm more concerned about what's the condition of the program. And the condition of the program, based on what's happened the last 2 weeks, I'm much more optimistic about another top 3 or 4 recruiting class than losing a game to Missouri with a guy that's thrown the ball 5 times in his life.
And see, that's where I'm kind of wondering, like, do you really think a performance like this would increase recruitment?
I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters too much, but I mean, if I'm like Aaron Nolan, I'm looking at this, I'm going, I don't know about this one.
What's Aaron Nolan's concern going to be? He should actually think, okay, maybe I can compete for the job in year one.
Oh, he should get the job the second he puts on a uniform. But I mean, I'm looking at Day and Fry and going, do I really want to play with these guys? I mean,
do you think that's really a concern? It doesn't, obviously is not a concern to anyone that's signing these scholarships.
It should be.
It's not. Why? They have had a prolific offense when they've had the right quarterback. And even this season, they still had a top 15 offense in the country with a serviceable quarterback. Well, no. According to the people that leave comments in the chat and talk, a trash quarterback, a horrible quarterback, they had a top 15 level offense.
Well, you do realize the fan base that is calling McGord a trash quarterback, right?
His own fan base, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've been
mostly. And the Michigan fans who I don't understand that claim when the game was as close as it was that they would want to call McCord trash. But
like I say, I'm on record for saying, I mean, do I think he's CJ Stroud or even his distant cousin? No.
Sure.
But was he a bad quarterback? No. I mean, most of the crap he caught was those 2 interceptions. But what people understand, Will Johnson made a hell of a move to jump Marvin Harrison Jr. on the route. And then the last pick was Rod Moore. I mean, that was so close of an interception, it had to be reviewed. So it's not like he was sitting there throwing it into, Michigan's secondary hands.
Well, his arm was also yanked. he obviously didn't throw the ball downfield at the velocity, and he was also throwing in somewhat desperation. They had probably, about 35 seconds left in the game.
Yeah.
So anyway, regardless, I would take Kyle McCord this season over Drew Aller. I think he played better. And I know Drew Aller only only threw one interception this season, but I'm just basing that on watching both of them play Michigan. Drew Aller was a disaster. He was a mess in that game.
I'd say he probably played worse against Ohio State than he did Michigan. I saw him missing a lot more open passes in Ohio State than he did Michigan. I mean, he didn't play good in either one. Let's not get that wrong. But I mean, he had wide open guys that he was just flat out missing by 5 yards.
Where McCord played fine in both games.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not knocking McCord. I mean, I think this might be kind of a thing where, with like Mac Jones and Tom Brady up in New England, you don't want to follow a guy like Stroud, especially after seeing what he did and now what he's doing at the Texans. It's hard to follow that guy because Stroud looked amazing especially last year. So, I mean, if you're using that as a reflection point, then yeah, McCord didn't look good. But I mean, just based on the body of work for 2023, I don't think he was that bad of a quarterback this year.
So, Mike, you're picking on Ohio State for giving the Big Ten its first postseason loss this year after 3 just monumental wins over the likes of Bowling Green and whomever else it was. Anyway, I did give Northwestern a ton of credit for their win. But anyway, because everybody gave Michigan a hell in 2017, losing to South Carolina when the Big Ten went 8-1. Any other points? I know this is all directed toward Ohio State. What else?
Well, you forgot Rutgers. I actually picked Rutgers over Miami.
Rutgers. Yes. I was pleased watching that. I caught some of it. Yeah.
And another thing that just made me personally mad, because I picked Ohio State in this game. I mean, like, so I played a win on the Bowl Mania, and I was perfect every game until this. I mean, I was even one of like the 4 people in the entire United States of America that picked Memphis to beat Ohio.
You were perfect on every game. Today,
yes.
Oh, today.
Okay. Oh, no. I mean, Tuesday and yesterday, I was terrible. I went from 2nd to like 9th. I took a bath. But today, I mean, I was one of the like 3% of America that actually picked Memphis to beat Iowa State. So I was a little giddy about that.
I am 18-11 against the spread, and I believe that's my straight up record as well.
Mine is a little worse than that. I am 18-15. Looks like.
Yeah, I missed a few games in there.
Yeah, I was, when I went to bed, I was 50-50. I was 500.
Okay, Mike, got a stack of calls. Do you have anything else?
Nope. Bring on the next caller. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. That wasn't too bad. Mike took it easy on me. All right, let's keep it moving. DeReal MVPs here after a Kentucky loss in the Gator Bowl. DeReal, what's going on?
Well, it's been a tough day, Mark. It's been a tough day. Kentucky tried their best, but, it's hard to win football games when you just keep fumbling the rock in the fourth quarter. Do you think they put butter on the ball on the Clemson sideline for every time they kicked it off? Kentucky just could not handle the football, Mark.
And once, of course, Kentucky had a double-digit lead, and then once Clemson swung it in their favor with all that momentum, I thought, okay, this game is pretty safe. I think Clemson has established itself. It's a better team, I believe. And then, boom, Baron Brown would rip off another amazing play, caught that long one downfield again, and then puts Kentucky back in the lead, whatever it was, like 27-21 or whatever the score was just a few minutes left. But yeah, too many turnovers for the what do you call yourselves? Blue, the
Big Blue.
The Big Blue. Yes.
Yeah, 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter, but Kentucky actually played a really good game up to that point. Barryon Brown, I mean, he was that guy today. Probably the best wide receiver in any bowl game today. Dominated all phases of the game, had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and had a punt return for 100 yards. I mean, he was incredible. I was frustrated because if I saw this version of Kentucky all season, I think we could be what Mizzou's doing.
Your team, you can take the pride in your team playing in the most entertaining game of the day. By far.
I'd take it one step farther, Mark. I mean, Kentucky's played in the most entertaining bowl game of the season so far.
I'd have to think about that one, but it's up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you lose a heartbreaker like that, Mark, it takes something out of you instead of just being crushed. Especially when, honestly, kind of like what you were saying with Ohio State, I thought Kentucky was the better team. I thought Kentucky dominated the line of scrimmage against Clemson, which is something I didn't expect at all. Kentucky had like 6 sacks in the game or something crazy like that. I mean, I know Cade Klubnik's not an elite quarterback or anything, but still, for Kentucky to do that's very impressive.
8 sacks.
8. I mean, that's just ridiculous, Mark.
Yeah, they looked tremendous. 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. It was a fun ball game. I enjoyed it.
Well, I didn't enjoy it. Everybody else says they had fun except for me. How come I'm the only one that can't have fun?
Well, it's kind of tied to that scoreboard.
Yeah, I know. It's just
entertainment for the rest of us. But I like how Dabo Swinney, after these bowl wins the last few years since that Clemson, now I'm taking shots and Ohio State for the program possibly regressing. I don't know. I don't believe so, but I get the point. Look at Clemson. But Dabo, he always finds a nugget of today. It was, we've won 9 games for 13 consecutive years, whatever the number was, something like that. So that's what he was latching on to during the post game this time.
Did you see Dabo's reaction to the 52-yard field goal?
Yes.
That was the most unbelievable reaction I think I've seen to a middle of the fourth quarter field goal. I mean, you would have swore he just won the Super Bowl with that kick.
Yeah, I was looking at the clock thinking, we still have some game here, don't we? There's like 4 minutes left in this game.
Right,
well,
and then
part of it has to do with the story of the kicker. He's really not that good. They probably shouldn't even be kicking the guy. They've had kicking issues the whole season, and it was just a fun little bounce of the ball, at least for those who weren't rooting for Big Blue.
Yeah, his field goal range was just 52 yards. If we had that ball a hair backwards, I think we probably would have won that game. I mean, being up 11 against Clemson should automatically have you a win. Yep. Something else I want to talk about that's kind of controversial in Big Blue circles is the 3rd and 18 call. They played really soft coverage at the very end of the game. It was 3rd and 18. They completed like a 17-yard out route in order to make it 4th and 1.
Yep.
What do you think about playing that soft coverage?
Oh, I would even say this before it was converted, 3rd and 17, that you're not playing Aaron Rodgers in his prime. You are playing quarterbacks who are really skilled, really good, but play the percentages and play aggressive. Force them to throw the ball over your head or in such a way that they're going to have to earn that. Especially with the way Kentucky's cornerbacks were playing in this game. I was extremely impressed with their cornerback play in terms of speed, aggressiveness, being able to break on the ball and break up some passes. I thought both corners played well most of the game.
Yeah, well, they've had some issue for most of the season. They're probably our weakest unit. So I was overly impressed with how they played. You want to address that comment?
Yeah, I didn't know if you could see me, but I was just motioning to everyone else. Yeah, so this is I don't know what this refers to, but this person, Sterling, with this Sterling comment here, he's apparently a big fan, but I would like him to call. So hopefully he's still in the chat, and I am inviting this individual to call because people make dumb comments, but they never will back them up. Never. They're cowards. So we believe Sterling to probably be one of those people, but maybe he will prove me wrong.
Anyway, Mark, I just wanted to ask you: Clemson converted a 3rd and 23 and a 3rd and 18, and they only still won by 3 points. A lot of things kind of went Clemson's way. People are saying this is an embellishment on Clemson more than it is praising Kentucky. What do you think about that line of thought?
I'm sorry, throw that by me one more time.
People think this is an indictment on Clemson's program, that they have to celebrate a 3-point win over Kentucky. And they're not praising Kentucky for being this competitive against Clemson.
Well, I think two things can be true. I think you can have standards. Let's say you're at a place like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, etc. You can have standards that are, we play for championships. We play for conference championships and national championships. That is the standard. But once those standards in a particular season are not met, and especially in the Clemson situation this year, clearly not met early. So it's not like they were 9-0 and then they collapsed at the end. By the end of September, they're out of it. Then you have to reset your goals, not that you change your standards overall, but your goals for that particular season. And you can be happy about winning. You can't do anything about your failures this season. You can't change the past. You can't change results. So instead of being miserable and just tolerating the season, you just have to reset and say, this is where we are now. And this is all we can accomplish and control right now. So we've won 5 consecutive games. We won a bowl game. The Gator Bowl is a historic bowl game. It may not be much today, but it is one of the longest standing bowl games in history. And we beat an SEC team and we won 5 consecutive games to finish 9-4. Celebrate. If they were 0-11 and won their last game of the season against South Carolina or against whomever, you can still compartmentalize that as saying, we're horrible and our team's horrible. We need to make changes, and we will do that on Sunday. But right now we're playing a football game and we're 0-11. If we accomplish and win this game, we're going to celebrate. Otherwise, you're going to be a miserable person.
I get that, Mark. So that's all I'm going to talk about Kentucky for tonight. I want to talk about Ohio State because, people in the chat want to hear about Ohio State. So I'm just going to ask all the obvious questions that people want to hear. Is Ohio State soft, Mark?
Are they soft? I don't even know what that means when you talk about football context. Like,
does Missouri offensive line dominating Ohio State's defensive line and them wearing them down throughout the game, is that a concern?
I'm not going to call it a complete non-concern. I will call it a slight concern that's overplayed by some because, let's face it, everybody's got a stake in the game that's taking one side or the other. So for the people that are Ohio State haters, detractors, critics, they will call that soft. I will say there's a couple of reasons that go into that type performance in the fourth quarter. One would be they don't play enough players. So that could be an issue. I will certainly state that Ohio State not having the type of waves of talent and muscle and those type of players that they feel comfortable rotating, a la Georgia at their best, Clemson at their best a few years ago. They don't have that type of rotation up front. Therefore, they play not enough players and they get worn down. So that's a recruiting concern from a depth standpoint. The guys that are playing on that Ohio State defensive line, you were looking at an NFL defensive line, but they're not playing 8 and 9 players like Georgia does and may have this season as well. So that's the concern. Not that those particular players are soft, but that Ohio State's recruiting has not been deep enough to deal with that situation.
I also think another reason this narrative or factual statement, depending on how you look at it, is around is because Ohio State has lost this same way like 6 or 7 times now.
Yeah.
If Ohio State lost this game 38-35, I think the narrative would be completely different. But you've lost this game, the Michigan game 3 times in a row, Oregon, the exact same way basically. Hey, we get run all over, we provide no resistance, and if we do, we provide it early on and we get worn down the later and later it goes.
Okay. All right. You corrected yourself there. Okay. You brought it full circle. Correct. Yes. Either Oregon, first Michigan game, trounced from the opening snap in the run game. Back to Michigan games, especially this last one, and tonight played great rush defense, wore out in the fourth quarter, started to give up plays. But then also the byproduct of that is when your offense is doing nothing, then your defense is on the field too much, and that's what happens. Yeah, this game is not a good look for Ohio State, and it's not acceptable and all those other things, but it's not a monumental concern as a program. This is still one of the 3 to 5 best programs in college football, and they're recruiting out of their minds. And again, people need to choose where they stand, and they need to be consistent with this approach. Do these games matter or they don't matter? What I've been hearing for like 3 or 4 years is that they don't matter, but then they suddenly matter when you can pick on a rival or just pick on an elite program that lost a game. Then suddenly they matter and they're a big concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it goes, Mark. I mean, I'm going to make fun of it, Ohio State, because now they're 2-13 in SEC against SEC teams in bowl games.
And
I mean, no offense.
And that's really the only thing that is Ohio State's kryptonite, I guess. That's the only mark in the history of this program that I really can't defend. But you know what? Would I rather be from a defensible standpoint of a program all time? Would I want to defend another program? No, I would rather defend Ohio State's all-time records than any other program in college football.
Right. And you mentioned it. Ohio State being the 5th, 4th, or 3rd best program is not good enough, Mark, for you. Ohio State's goal should be to win every game. Well, if you win every game, you should be the best program. And Ohio State's not achieving their goals.
Yes.
And some people are saying Ryan Day is not a good coach. He should get fired. So what do you think about those questions?
Oh, I believe that, like I saw somebody post tonight and they directed it right toward me that Ryan Day's on the hot seat, and they sent out a funny GIF that the seat was hot and in flames and everything. Yeah, I don't think that Ohio State should endure another season like this one, even though based on other standards, just about anywhere else. And I would say in a sense, Ohio State standards might be higher than anywhere, in that if he goes 11-2 next year, let's say they do exactly what they're doing, but they would make the playoffs and they would lose. Let's say they were a 6 seed. They just lost to Michigan. They're a 6 seed in the playoffs. They lose to the 11 seed. And they lose a home game to Ole Miss in the playoffs. That should probably be the point would be, can Ryan Day do a good job and we continue to win 11 games every year? Ohio State winning 11 games a year, it's kind of ridiculous. You have to go back. You've got to go back to 2008 to find an Ohio State season without 11 wins. But that's where you make that call to say, we could stay with Ryan Day and he could continue to do this, but we believe we can do better and we believe we have to do better. Therefore, we've seen this enough. That's it. You're done. Even though it's ridiculous to fire somebody with a record of Ryan Day's, and that's never happened in the history of college football. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Has anybody won 85 or 88% of their games and been fired in the history of college football? And the answer will be no, but maybe this is the time that it should happen. So one more year of this, and I am completely behind firing Ryan Day. Not that he's a bad coach, but that, okay, it's just not happening here. You're not doing it here. And for some reason, there's just something missing. You're not doing a bad job, but we need to find the right guy that can push it through.
Right. And that was gonna be my next point is if you're an Ohio State fan, you're just kind of treading water. There's nothing to get excited about. You're not beating anybody really special. The only decent team you're beating for Ohio State standards is Penn State. And that's just not good enough there. Even your out of conference games, when you schedule big ones like Oregon, you lose. So it's untenable. I feel bad for him because he's
whoa. They just beat Notre Dame the last 2 years, not a conference.
Okay. I mean, that's cool. Notre Dame's just a pretender, Mark, in the grand scheme of the national championship.
That's the only team they can beat if they scheduled that as an out of conference game. That's the only game that they can win.
Right, but they scheduled Oregon. They lost to Michigan. Georgia. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Missouri now.
Your point, but don't say that they don't beat anybody outside the conference. They win better non-conference games than anybody in that conference.
That's true, Mark. But the standard is different. The standard is different. You're not Penn State. You're not Maryland.
You can actually speak to Michigan fans because they don't want to hear this, but the standard is even different at Ohio State than it is at Michigan.
Yeah, until they win a playoff game. I mean, that's just going to be the reality of the situation. They're going to be, in my opinion, they're pretenders until they actually do something on the field.
Ryan Day's record is so much better than Jim Harbaugh's at this stage. Well, it still is, but at this stage that if Michigan had the same standards as Ohio State, then Jim Harbaugh would have been fired. Did Ryan Day go 8-5 in his 4th season?
Probably not, but that's just a different standard.
And he hasn't gone 8-5. He hasn't gone anything close to that.
Right. So it's just a hypothetical we can't answer, but I'm safe to say he would have been fired. Tim Prangley brings up a good point. Man, if Ohio State hit that game-winning field goal against Georgia, how things would be different, Mark. But unfortunately, the ball didn't bounce his way. And sometimes you have those breaks that you look back on and say, if this was different, then the whole trajectory of his career would have changed.
And that goes with the territory of if you win the championships, you already make more money than 99.99999% of Americans. And if you win the right games and win enough of them, you are hailed as, I don't want to say deity, but I'll say as a superhuman hero. But the downside is you could be really, really, really good at your job. But yes, some kicker missed a kick. Otherwise, your legacy's different. But he's going to be given another opportunity to correct that next season.
Yeah, and Mark, and you know what? That's unfair, but life's unfair, Mark. I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
It is. It is.
So,
and we can all look at other people in life and say, wow, that's unfair. They have this, this, and that. But as Americans, we can look at far more people on the other side, and that's really not fair for them. Okay. Anything else to reel?
No, that's all I got for you. Fight on to Tiger Paul Craven and Jordan Bowman.
Oh, good stuff. Yes, we did our Clemson postgame with Tiger Paw and with Jordan Bowman. They've done a remarkable job with Clemson postgame for a third consecutive season, maybe. I'm losing track. So check out their work over on the Clemson channel. And again, this was a big day for Clemson football, possibly, if it projects forward. I think they really need to look at Cade Klubnik and determine whether... And then they had this hotshot freshman this year, Chris Vizina. Look at him. Evaluate him. Is he ready to go? All right. We got Michigan Man here.
What up, Mark?
What is going on?
Hey, man, I want to shout out Rutgers. It's real impressive, man. I think they've come a long way.
They have.
Miami, I don't know what's going on with them. They got the recruits, but I don't know. That was Shiano's putting together quite the program there, man.
I don't know if they can take additional steps, though. That remains to be seen.
That's true. That's true. I mean, would you agree it's one of the most impressive coaching jobs, though?
Oh, I think he's a really good coach. He took over a program that they lost 21 consecutive Big Ten games, and most of those were 40-point losses, just getting drubbed. And he immediately made them respectable in that at least they were playing functional football and winning a few games. And now this is year 4. And yeah, they win a bowl game. They beat a top 15 talent team in Miami, and they were respectable in the Big Ten. They didn't get blown out.
What do you think about the direction of Miami? Are you guys some big concerns with them?
Yes.
I mean, what year is he in, Cristobal? Is it 2 or 3?
This is his second season.
Second season, okay.
Yeah. And he showed at Oregon, and he has showed in recruiting. They had a top 4 recruiting class. But I don't know. The first red flag that showed for me and Mario Cristobal was when they got blasted by 4 touchdowns by Utah near the end of the season in 2021. And then they are playing Utah 2 or 3 weeks later in the Pac-12 championship game. And it was the identical game. They got blasted by 4 touchdowns again. The scores were almost identical. The domination was almost identical. It showed me, number one, he didn't adjust from a scheme standpoint, and he didn't inspire the pride in his players. They were the more talented team, and they get wiped off the field 2 times in 4 weeks to Utah, and one of those times with the Pac-12 championship on the line.
Yeah, and he might be one of the worst clock management coaches.
Yes, he's horrible.
Even in that Rutgers game, I think there was it was towards the end, and they had, I think, like 2 timeouts, and he decided not to call a timeout, and they got the ball back with really, I think they were down 2 scores, and they really had no chance at that point because he decided not to use a timeout when he should have. Look, man, Ohio State, man, ain't too much to say, man. I mean, look, I think I think these bowl games, a lot of them have become meaningless. Unless it's unless it's a playoff game. Really, bowl games are only for development and building on going into the next season. They don't mean anything in terms of a win, but I think they mean something in terms of trying to build towards the following season. That's how I look at a lot of these bowl games. I think I don't know what he was talking. I don't think that Mizzou's O-line dominated the D-line at all. I thought the defense dominated Mizzou for 3 quarters.
Well, I think that was his point, though. They wore down in the 4th quarter.
Well, I mean, when you're on the field the whole game, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, well, that was one of my counterpoints.
And also, they don't rotate a lot, Ohio State.
Oh, well, that was my other counterpoint. And that's a recruiting issue or a development issue. But I think it's a recruiting issue in that Ohio State recruits and signs studs along the defensive line, but not at the level of Georgia, Clemson when they were really bringing in a rotation. But Georgia's the one that comes to mind where they can play that many players.
Is it? I mean, you have 2 5-stars on that line right now?
At least 2 for sure.
So is it
Sawyer
a recruiting issue
JTT.
or is it a developmental issue?
Well, those guys are both really good players. They're not All-Americans. They were supposed to be. JTT was a preseason All-American first team. He didn't play like it. He played an all Big Ten player. They're really good players, but they're not
elite.
changers,
I want to call them
wreckers.
Top of the line.
They had better interior play from guys like Mike Hall and Tyleik Williams. Those guys especially Tyleik Williams, had a great season.
Oh, yeah. And, the bigger concern is with the last couple callers, they've been talking about, quarterback this, they didn't play well. Even if Devin Brown didn't get hurt, your O-line was atrocious.
Yeah,
Like,
the pass
I don't care
blocking
who
was
was
bad.
back there.
Yeah.
I mean, what did they have? They couldn't set their feet, nothing. Even on screen passes where they're supposed to, come through.
Yeah,
They're
they
getting
came
to
in too fast. Yeah.
So I think I think the bigger issue right now is the trenches, period. And it's gotten progressively worse every year.
On the offensive side, not on the
Yeah.
defensive side.
That's I guess you could say that.
I have no issues with their defense this year.
No, that's
That
true.
defense can win a national championship, but it's not like they've got an all-time great defense or even the best defense in the country now. They don't, but it's close. I think, like you, I think we're on the same page. Their number one issue tonight and this season, offensive line number one, quarterback tonight, because they're playing a third stringer who had 5 pass attempts in his career, number two. And those are their two big decisions. I would invest the transfer portal in offensive line.
Yeah, and like I said, even if Devin Brown doesn't get hurt, I think the same result honestly happens, because even when he was in there, I mean, they got the field goal, but the offensive line just couldn't protect him. I mean, what are you going to do? I don't care what quarterback's back there. Maybe McCord. Maybe McCord, just because of the experience. And also, this game showed me how valuable Marvin Harrison Jr. was to the offense. When you could just chuck it up to a guy 14 times a game and he can make something happen and he's not there, it really shows you how much of the offense he really was.
When Keen Holtz, once he got into the flow of the game, the times that he was able to set up in the pocket, he delivered some nice balls downfield.
Yeah, to me, Keen Holtz is a little. I've watched him before. I think he's more promising than Devin Brown.
I think he is too.
I think he's actually more mobile. I don't know. I just like the way he moves in the pocket more. Devin Brown. Everybody talks about Devin Brown, and it's just one of those things where the backup quarterback's always the best quarterback.
Yeah.
He's he's definitely not the answer to me, at least so far. We'll see though. I think when you talk about the direction of Ohio State, man, I as a Ohio State fan, despite recruiting as good as it's been, I would be concerned, and it's just because of coaching. I feel like this team, since something's missing since the Urban Meyer days, man. I don't know. I know Urban Meyer lost to teams that he shouldn't have lost to, but when it came to bowl games and when it came to big games, you always saw that edge. You always saw them step up. I don't see that. Consistently.
Well, even going back to his Florida days, Urban Meyer had a postseason record like Nick Saban. I think it's 14-3. Yeah. He won big postseason games and he beat his rivals both at Florida and at Ohio State. The only defense I'll have for Ryan Day versus Urban Meyer was Urban Meyer didn't face this Michigan program.
No, and that's a great point. People keep, this is Michigan side of things. People keep wanting to compare Ryan Day. What is he in year 5?
Yes.
Year 5 to the first 5 years of Harbaugh. I just don't think you can compare them when you go by the state of the programs when each coach took them over. No, and to me, Harbaugh has built this program into what it is the last 3 years, right? And this is where they're at, despite not having the talent level of Ohio State. And Ohio State, honestly, isn't where Michigan is at right now. I mean, that's just being bluntly honest. Michigan, at least these last 3 years, has officially surpassed Ohio State.
Yeah, you can't argue that. Of course they have. They won 3 games and they won the Big Ten championship. But if Ohio State's taking Kyle McCord and his mistakes into Michigan and they're 35 yards away from winning that game.
My counter to that would be 2 things. Is Michigan beat Ohio State with Cade. Cade's nothing special. And when you
No,
had
I'm not
Stroud.
talking about those teams. I'm talking about this team.
No, I know
this
what I'm
year.
saying, but what I'm saying is Harbaugh was able to beat a more superior, at least on the offensive side, team with Ohio State with a quarterback that was nothing special,
Yeah.
and not only that, I mean Michigan had an interim coach that was juggling 3 jobs at once, and they still somehow found a way to win.
I think but we see examples of interim coaches winning games all over the place. I think that was way overblown.
They do, but I can't remember an interim coach coming in that late in the year, really having to juggle 3 jobs and beat a top 3 team. I'm trying to think when that's happened.
Well, the opportunity to have that happen doesn't come up. I think that this team is much better than that 2021 Ohio State team. I think that was the worst.
They're more well-rounded.
Ohio State team during the Urban Meyer / Ryan Day era.
On defense, not on offense, arguably was their best offense, honestly. It really is a flip-flop if you think about it. Now, I would say that the Ohio State's offense this year is better in comparison to that Ohio State defense of that year. That year was weird though, because Ohio State's defense, it wasn't great, but they kind of found their stride towards the end of the year, and then they played Michigan and they fell apart, and then they played Utah and they looked terrible. But yeah, I mean, I agree to a point. I think this Ohio State team is more well-rounded. I don't know. That's complicated to me. But I'm excited for this Michigan-Alabama game, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can break our streak in these CFP, man. 0-3 would not be nice.
No, it wouldn't.
And I already told you, man, if we beat Bama, hey, the real, I want to know where you at. If we beat Bama, the real, where you at, man?
And if Alabama wins, he's going to want to know where you're at.
Rightfully so.
Okay.
You know what
I'm going to enjoy it either way. I've got no pressure, no skin in the game. I'm just going to watch the game. It is difficult for me to figure out how Michigan's going to win this game.
For real? Do you think so?
Yes.
So what do you say? You think it's going to be? You don't think it's going to be close?
No. I don't think it's, and I know that those two things go against each other, because if it's close, then one team, if Michigan can keep it close, then they're good enough to win the game, to make a play and win the game. I find it difficult to see them scoring many points.
Yeah. Michigan's weird though, because we say that and then they play defense, right? That we think it feels like every time Michigan goes into the Penn State game, they go into the Ohio State game, we say that. Like, we don't know how they're going to score, but then they end up scoring 26, 30 points, 40 points. You know what I'm saying? Michigan is very pro style in the sense that they'll play games, right, against, I guess, lesser competition, so to speak. And you're like, I don't see how this team can score going into this game next week, and then they end up moving the ball. They're a very weird team in that sense. So I don't know what to expect from them.
Auburn ran the ball against Alabama. So I guess if they can do it without, and they don't have anything close to Michigan's passing game. Auburn's passing game is horrendous. So Alabama knew exactly what was coming, and they still couldn't stop it. Now, rivalry game on the road, who knows what's going on there. Colston Loveland and A.J. Barner, I think, are big components of this passing game, and they could be mismatches that Michigan needs to take advantage of. Colston Loveland should not be catching 3 passes in this game. He should be catching 8 or 10.
Yeah, no doubt. There's just a lot of question marks. Like JJ, for example, is he back to being 100%? People keep talking about how he was dealing with the bum leg those 3 weeks. Is he back to 100%? Is he going to be more mobile? Are they going to use him in the run game? My biggest concern is Milroe's legs and that crazy big O-line. How our D-line matches up against them. But yeah, no, I'm gonna let you go, man. You probably got some other callers, so.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Have a good one.
Have a good night. My callers actually have gone away. a ton of them dropped off. So if you had already called before, you can certainly call back. We will leave the link in the chat. But let's get to these super chats. I appreciate these. Oh, BGPO Football Funk. DeAndre, thank you so much for that. Hey, Mark, happy holiday. Hey, Mark, happy holidays. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Jay Cortez, we're going to waste another year with Ryan Day at the helm. O-line, special teams are trash. Special teams. Okay, are we talking about the field goal kicker? Or are we talking about special teams? They punted the ball a number of times inside the 10-yard line. So that worked. No adjustments made. No moves in the portal. Day is scared to let it rip. He has to go. Just embarrassing. I respect that comment. Now, he's not embarrassing. It's just people's comments about embarrassing. That's ludicrous. If this is embarrassing, then every team that does not win a national championship is embarrassing. But you have your right to be embarrassed about it. I'm not embarrassed, but then again, I have nothing to be embarrassed about. It's not my team. I have no control over it. I just analyze everyone. So my analysis right now is, yes, things have to get better. Quarterback play, offensive line play have to be better while maintaining or upgrading everything else. And that's not always easy. Sometimes you have an upgrade in one or two areas that you addressed, and then you have a drop off elsewhere. And that's the cycle of college football teams, even before the portal. And Ohio State lost nothing of consequence in the portal. Julian Fleming, nice little third receiver, fine, big deal. They're loaded at receiver, of course. And Chip Tranum played really hard, did a nice job. He'll be a nice add-on for Kentucky and gain 500 or 600 yards rushing. Kyle McCord, serviceable quarterback. He could play quarterback at, well, if he played at Ohio State, he could go anywhere if they wanted. If even the teams that have a better quarterback, Alabama, next year, they were forced to play Kyle McCord. Nick Saban, you have to play Kyle McCord. He would put up numbers, and they would be in, of course, a 12-team playoff. And then who knows? So he can go play with talented players and get the ball to them. But that's not what you're looking at, what you're looking for at a place like Ohio State. You are looking for somebody that either can intimidate the defense with their running ability, in addition to being a capable thrower, or they're just a generational type arm talent like CJ Stroud. Kyle McCord being the 30th best quarterback in the country, not good enough. All right. Statistically, one of the top 12 or 15 quarterbacks, but that's with all the talent surrounding him. So, Jay Cortez, appreciate that. And again, I am not disagreeing with you because you want to win national championships. And they do not have a national championship team right now. The facts have proven that out. Saunders says, no excuses. Ohio State has twice the roster talent of Missouri. Here's the thing about roster talent, though. The quarterback position is the most important position on the field, and your receiver talent is completely diminished if you don't have the quarterback to get them the ball, or you don't have the offensive line pass pro to allow the quarterback to get the ball to the wide receivers. There should probably be some type of measurement that weights the positions in recruiting rankings that, and I think people talk too much about quarterbacks and don't give other positions their just due. However, I do also believe that that's just the way the game's played, and that's the obvious situation in football. The quarterback's the most important position, so that should be reflected in the recruiting rankings. But thank you for that, Sonder. Mike 3883. Thank you so much for the contribution. Issues with Ohio State here. Number 1, offensive coordinator. Number 2, offensive line. Number 3, Ryan Day wasn't the quarterback. So Mike has no issue with the quarterback play. I guess bring back Kyle McCord. And I was lighter on Kyle McCord than just about anyone. I thought he was getting better throughout the season, but I'll be shocked if he's an elite quarterback. And he's not going to be an elite quarterback at Syracuse. Look at where he just landed. Look at where Kyle McCord landed. He landed at Syracuse. When is the last time Syracuse had a top flight quarterback? Well, they had Ryan Nassib, who turned out to be a backup in the NFL and was a first round pick, right? Ryan Nassib, about 2012. But that was a bit of a shocker. He didn't play like that in college, but he was drafted based on arm talent. The last time they had a superstar quarterback in college was Donovan McNabb 25 years ago. All right. So, Mike, I respect your lineup there, but offensive line, 1 for me, and then 2 is the quarterback, and then 3, play calling, I think, is overrated. It's important, but it's overrated. Sonder. Appreciate you. Interesting. P-O-B, because USC third string quarterback bald. That was not the USC third string quarterback. That was the USC backup quarterback. And he has played before. So let's compare correctly. Okay, let's do that. So we do not tolerate misinformation. So Miller Moss has, number 1, he has played. He did not come into this game with 5 pass attempts against Louisville. Miller Moss has thrown 92 passes in college football, not 5. And he's not the backup or the third string quarterback. He's the backup quarterback. So let's be accurate. You're on a show where we will force you to be accurate. Dan, thank you so much for the contribution. Bucks improving in the trenches, defensive line and run game good. We've got some positive here. We've got somebody who actually can look at an 11-2 football team and really an 11-1 football team that didn't have a quarterback and say, and I will not speak for Dan, but I'm guessing he's not completely pleased with all of that, but he's going forward. Ohio State's going to field a competitive team in a 12-team playoff next year. They'll be okay. For everyone that hates Ohio State, you should be rejoicing because they're just so incredibly bad. They're horrible. So you have nothing to be concerned with, nothing to worry about, nothing. Thank you for that, Dan. Then we've got Moose here, and Moose says, "We come in Bama." Yeah, they're both going to be on the field there at the Rose Bowl on January 1st. I am going to look forward to that game. And we will have to cut a prediction video. Most of my predictions basically all on Patreon. I hope you folks are getting my predictions. I'm not saying I am just like annihilating bowl season, but it is a bit difficult to predict bowl season. And 19-11 against the spread, if you do the math, if you know anything about wagering on these games, I've basically given you free money, right? For what? $3 a month, whatever it is. I have basically given you free money. Today I only went 2-2 against the spread because Clemson, they only won by what, 5, 4, whatever they won by. I think they were up. I'll have to look that up. They didn't cover the spread, unfortunately. It was very close, right? What was the final score of that game? 35-32? 38-35. Yes, I think they were a 5-point favorite. They only won by 3. All right, then we got Vandy Dandy. Ohio State fans are deluded like the French Revolution. Okay. Thank you for that, Vandy Dandy. Then we got Casey Anthony got away with it. Oh, man, I'm going to have to look that up. Since 2015, Clemson has won 40 more games than Florida State. Yeah, probably. See, that's 8 years ago. That's 5 a year with a 7-1 record versus the Seminoles. Okay, yes. They've won all those games since the last time Clemson lost to Florida State before this season was 2014. Yes. Florida State Nation is way overhyping their overall greatness. So, Casey, that's a great discussion. That is great discussion about Clemson, Florida State. And it's a pretty easy one to make. It's almost like Ohio State and Michigan, but with Clemson and Florida State, all time, if you're really talking all time, all the way back to black and white film, then it's really close, and Clemson probably has an edge. Clemson is about top 15 all time in victories and winning percentage. Florida State's a little bit behind that, but it's so close. Now, if we move it up to what most of us can relate to, which would be Bobby Bowden taking over Florida State in 1975, Florida State has it all over Clemson over the last 50 years. It's not close. Okay. Then we have the college football playoff era / Dabo Swinney's emergence at Clemson. And that's not close. That is in the Clemson category. For the last 10 years, Clemson fans, you have every bragging right on Florida State imaginable. It's not close. So pick your poison, we are going to do a series this offseason. This is a good reminder. I am going to allow you to request, and I will line up the matchup. Whatever matchup you request. So let's say you are a Iowa fan and you want to see how Iowa has matched up against Wisconsin because you want to prove a point. You pick the time frame, and I will size up the matchup, whether you want to go all time, since the beginning of time, 1869 college football, or you want to start from the day you were born, or you want to do the last 10 years, whatever time frame, I will match up your team against whatever team you want to be matched up against. Your rival. Got Tim about to jump on here with us if he wanted to match up USC and UCLA. I'll do it for any time frame that he would like. And of course, he would enjoy those results in any time frame. But Oregon fans, if you want to take down USC, then you give me a certain time frame and we can make that look nice and pretty for you. We will do that. And we'll see if people enjoy that series. I will enjoy putting it together if you folks enjoy taking it in. And what led me to that was a number of conversations and debates that we've had on here about a lot of different matchups, and Casey Anthony got away with it. Brings up a good one with Florida State and Clemson. Of course, we wage the war with Ohio State and Michigan on a daily basis, and that's pretty clear. If you go all time, from the beginning of time, it's very close. If you go the last, pick your years, 100 years, 70 years, 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, it's Ohio State. If you go the last 3 years, it's Michigan. There you go. Done. All right. Tim's here. Tim, what's going on tonight?
Hey, how's it going? don't really have a dog in the fight, but you brought the 90 snaps from Miller Moss. I mean, Mark, the vast majority of those were just garbage time.
I understand. I know that he wasn't playing critical snaps against Oregon and Washington. I know, but he took 92 snaps in college football games, not 5.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And you're right. I mean, I don't know why the person thought he was third string quarterback. He's been the backup quarterback for 2 years. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where that one came from. As far as UCLA, if UCLA wanted to do the 90s, they'd be very happy, actually, because they won. They own the 90s.
Okay, I guess we could do it that way. I was thinking of any particular year going all the way up until now. But I guess if somebody wanted to say, I want to see USC, UCLA just in the 90s. Sure, we'll do
And then Oregon, if they want to cherry pick a couple of years, they're going to have some good. But again, at USC,
cherry picking. You're going to have to say, here's 20 years, or this is what I want.
Well, I know, but see, as a USC fan, we don't really measure ourselves on how often we beat Oregon. We measure it by national championships and conference championships and stuff like that. Oregon tends to measure themselves up against, if they beat USC or not. So fair enough. Let them have that. Let them enjoy some wins here and there. It's always nice to have.
Well, Oregon has been a better program since Pete Carroll left. That's really not that debatable.
Fair enough.
Right?
Well, let's see how many. So the last decade, last 10 years, how many conference championships have they won?
Since 2014. So we're going 2014 on.
So I think it's 3. And one of those is the 2020 year, the COVID year, where they didn't win. They actually backdoored because Washington was sick.
Yeah, you can really throw that away. Yes.
So really 2, right? They have 2 conference championships in 10 years. I mean, how dominant? I guess you would have to say Utah's.
I didn't say it was dominant. I said that they've been better since Pete Carroll left. You've got the Chip Kelly era that was elite.
The beginning of Helfrich was good.
And then Helfrich took them to a national championship game. And then they slid off with Willie, and Cristobal was okay. And now here they are with Lanning. They're good. They've had 2 nice seasons with Lanning.
Yeah, they've had nice seasons. They've had some nice seasons. They had a couple of good runs and a bunch of nice seasons.
Had 1 nice season, and Helton had 2, not USC standard, but 2 really good seasons, the Rose Bowl win and the Pac-12 championship the next year.
Yeah, but the thing is USC was also spent the better part of the first part of that decade on the ridiculous sanctions, which set them back easily 5-6 years.
Do we know that they're ridiculous?
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Okay.
Well,
I can't debate that. I don't remember.
We should debate that sometime because the fact is literally what they did to USC.
That would be a tremendous off-season topic.
30 recruits over 3 years.
What, they lost 30 scholarships, you mean?
Well, I mean, yeah. So you're looking at 30 scholarships, but there's 30 recruits that they couldn't sign because of those sanctions, which is going to definitely set back. And I didn't call in to talk about USC, actually. I called to see if you wanted to have a phone line. I can go backstage and take phone calls, but I didn't know if you want to do that or not.
Heck yeah, we can do that. We will take a call here from Jackson. Jackson just popped on.
I'll bounce backstage. I just wanted to correct that person who thought that Miller Moss was a third string quarterback, which is pretty absurd.
I corrected that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good job, Mark.
Did I not do that sufficient enough? Okay.
No, you did, but I also wanted to push back on you. It wasn't so. Although he does have 90 snaps, and that's more than 5 snaps, that's true. They were all garbage snaps. I mean, it wasn't like it was a blowout time, or it was in like that. I think it was a game where I think Slovis got hurt. He came in, but again, he got no practice reps. They were just handing the ball off. It was So I mean, I get that. I am worried.
Passes
3 points though, Mark.
Pac-12 competition.
No matter who you're fielding, you should get more than 3 points in a football game.
Sure.
You'd agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. They lost tonight. They also played a quarterback who's thrown 5 passes against a quarterback who's thrown 800 passes.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'm just going to throw it in there. Yeah, I agree. It's a rough game, but both games count for everyone out there. Bowl games do count. Ask recruiting. I'll tell you what, going into the offseason on a loss is not the most exciting way to go. I think they should move back. Here's another thing. Why not move the signing day back? And why not move the transfer portal back till after the bowl games? And also push it back to when all these coaches get poached by the NFL so they know who's going to be coaching them. I have no idea why they just have so early.
Yes, nobody can answer this question. I've asked that ever since they started the early signing day. Who was the force that caused that move? The only thing I've heard is that this is better for the players, but I don't know if that's a legitimate answer or that's we're going to make this sound good, like we're doing something for the players, because the players have been hounded and are most of them, although this has proven out that most of them are prepared to make a decision early. Therefore, they've made that decision early.
Just in life, the longer you could wait to make a decision, if you're given the option to wait on something, it's often prudent to wait and get all of the information before and it's not optional. They go, well, they can wait until February. But no, a lot of these kids that aren't the top, if you're not a top cornerback or quarterback or defensive line guy, you're gonna probably need to be forced to sign early. Hey, we're filling up spots here. You want to ride with us or what?
Yep.
We know there's a lot of pressure on that, and why not let these kids wait to see who their coach is going to be, who their position coach is going to be, and on down the line. So I'm gonna pop backstage, and then if you need,
this is what we're gonna do, Tim. Is we are going to take these two calls that are going to be like 3-minute calls on StreamYard. And will you do me one favor and throw up a banner with the number?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Do that, and we'll take calls for.
I'm gonna bounce back.
All right, let's get Jackson on here. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
It's going pretty good, Mark. Just enjoying another wonderful year of bowl season. How you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Oh man, I have no idea what happened with the Buckeyes tonight. I was like, oh man, but I was impressed with Missouri, and I gotta say, I was pretty negative on them in the preseason, big time. I mean, when I watched that Missouri-Kansas State game, I thought to myself, okay, they're showing me real quick I underestimated them. But I didn't think they'd be going to a Cotton Bowl and beat up on Ohio State in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that is a huge win for that program. They haven't won a bowl game of that magnitude in forever. I know they won a Cotton Bowl 10 years ago, but that was against Oklahoma State.
2013. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been forever since Missouri won. I don't even think in my lifetime, you would have to go back. Oh my goodness. The last time they'd never won any major bowl games during my lifetime, aside from that Cotton Bowl, which wasn't technically a major bowl game, wasn't a BCS bowl game at the time.
Another bad move by the BCS, not making the Cotton Bowl a BCS bowl game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just horrible. But I mean, Gary Pinkel did a fantastic job at Missouri. And, I'm beginning to wonder if Eli Drinkwitz is the next Gary Pinkel at Missouri.
Well, it certainly didn't look like it going into this season, because Eli Drinkwitz has always impressed me in how he handles the media. He seems like a great guy and a great communicator, and just a guy that you would love to hang out with. But that doesn't necessarily translate into being a great head coach. And going into the season, I think he was 2 games under 500. And if they fired Barry Odom for having a better record than Eli Drinkwitz, I figured, is this going to be his make or break season? Well, we'll never know, but because he's done some really good things there. So maybe he's turned the corner.
Well, I hope he can continue the fantastic run that he had this year, next year. I just don't want to see them let it go to their heads. I mean, the third down conversion rates, I mean, that was one of the keys right there. I mean, 4 of 16 third downs completed from Missouri, 2 of 15 third downs completed from Ohio State. That was bad.
Yeah, the offenses were bad on both sides.
I mean, that Ohio State offense could have gotten better luck from a bunch of kids than that bunch over there. I mean, that was just bad.
Which I would make the case that the Ohio State defense is far more impressive than Missouri's defense because they faced a starting quarterback and they faced a complete complement of Missouri's offense.
Yeah. Schrader was fantastic.
He was?
Yeah, I mean, I love what he put out tonight, but I think he's gonna. I can't wait to see more of him next year.
Yeah, it was not his fault, but he didn't do much damage until pretty much the game was over. But
yeah, that is true. But I mean, the fourth quarter, like before the fourth quarter even started, I thought I was getting a glimpse of the 2008 Sun Bowl Part 2, but those 2 unanswered touchdowns basically showed me, okay, maybe I'm overreacting a little. But I'm excited about tomorrow's Peach Bowl between Ole Miss and Penn State, because that's the game where both teams have like this reputation that where everybody thinks they can't get it done in the big games. Where Ole Miss, they're basically the Penn State of the SEC. Penn State's basically the Ole Miss of the Big Ten.
Well, Penn State has won BCS and New Year's Six games, so I don't know what would be different about them beating Ole Miss.
That is true, but like you know, a lot of us, you know, we know that Penn State does very fantastic in the New Year's Six and the BCS.
Exactly. So
but
that's why I don't know that this is really a huge game for Penn State, just because they've won these games.
Yeah.
So this is not their shot at Ohio State and Michigan.
True. But it's going to be great, and I am hoping that things are better for Ohio State next year. I mean, that the easy schedule they got on non-conference play should help, but the way they played tonight, I'm not liking where the Buckeyes are at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. All right, Jackson, appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me on, Mark.
Yeah, what Ohio State did tonight, again, it's a Cotton Bowl loss, so historically it's not a good thing. It's a loss against the SEC. It's a loss against the top 10 team. It's a loss on national team. This has no impact on next season. None. It just doesn't. It's not a good game. It's not a good night. They're bringing back a talented team, and they're bringing back a top 3 or 4 team in the country and a great recruiting class. Just a ridiculous recruiting class. And yeah, I don't, yeah. Tonight playing a quarterback with 5 attempted passes, just okay. All right. We got Keith on the line. Keith, what's going on?
Hey, Mark. Sorry, feel bad for you guys again. You're going through the same self-scrutiny we've had to go to for the with Harbaugh that keep losing the last 2 games of the year.
Yes. Well, that's only been 2 times for Ohio State the last 2 years.
Okay.
They won the Rose Bowl the year before.
Yeah. Point I want to bring up is Ohio State again had an 18-2 advantage in 5 stars against Missouri.
Yep.
We used to call that potential. Remember the days when we called that potential?
Yes.
Yes. So I would say that the more talented teams are really winning the games. I give Rutgers the credit for that. They had some little guys hitting some big guys in that Miami game. But they were running hard, hitting them full speed, even if it wasn't always successful. That looked like a hard team against a softer team. And what I mean by softer is teams not playing to their potential.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
So,
basically saying Miami's more talented than Rutgers. Rutgers was tougher and they won the game. Ohio State's more talented than Missouri. Missouri was tougher and they won the game.
yes, I can't say for the Missouri game because I fell asleep during it, but but the but certainly I saw that with Rutgers and I saw that with Michigan because you guys outnumbered us. I think it was 18-3 in five
Yeah, that
stars.
sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that I feel better with a bunch of aggressive 4 stars than I do with underachieving 5 stars.
Well, that's the point, Keith. If you could point out the 5 stars that are going to underachieve, well, then you don't want those guys. But the statistics tell us that more 5 stars by far develop into NFL players than 4 stars do. It's like over 40% of 5 stars turn out to be NFL players. Only about 12 to 14% of 4 stars turn out to be NFL players. So you would rather have 5 stars. And then, of course, you have to have 4 stars because there's not enough 5 stars to go around. But if you're just talking about the underachieving ones, yes, you don't want those.
Right. Yeah, and we had Shea Patterson like that. He just never was quite good enough to win big games.
Nope.
But he was a 5 star and had all the potential in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's the way.
But you also
that
have one playing quarterback right now.
yes, we have a cornerback and a cornerback as well in Will Johnson.
Yes.
But we have a 5 star wide receiver in Darius Clemens that can't find his way on the field.
Not yet.
Yeah, well, this was his sophomore year, and Roman Wilson and Ronnie Bell certainly were having much more success by 4 stars. We're having much more success than Darius Clemens is.
Yeah, there's a reason he's not playing.
Yeah. So, and what I think that we have that chance is that maybe Alabama 5 stars are going to underachieve in this game, like they've underachieved in some earlier games. I'm different than most others is that I think you can throw the Auburn game out because more than just a trap game, it was a look-ahead game. Alabama was really concerned about Georgia the following week, just like Michigan was really concerned about Ohio State, rightfully so, during the Maryland game. So when a team is looking ahead, they're always going to look bad in that look-ahead game.
Okay. I believe that that's a legitimate point.
Right.
You're
But there
talking
were
psychology, and we can't prove that, but it makes sense.
yeah, it's more common than not. It happens more than it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Again, I don't want to be nitpicky with but I just want to be correct, and I want to tell you what's on my mind, and that's not to again nitpick it down to a T, but what the statements you're making are completely reasonable, logical, and most people believe them to be true to a certain degree, including me, but they can't be proven, or nobody's proven them. They could be proven if you really wanted to come up with some kind of metric that measured games and trap games and look ahead games, but I've never seen anybody do it. So it's all hypothetical in terms of nobody has sat down and delivered a statistic to say, this is how teams perform when there's a look ahead spot or a trap game. Because first of all, that has to be defined, and then it has to be the analytics have to be executed, and nobody's ever done that.
Yes, we're not quite a science. I agree there. Also, the uh, the parent development of Kyle McCord came through the year, and I go back to the OSU spring game, and to me, I saw Kyle McCord and Devin Brown basically the same quarterback. I believe in that spring game, neither threw a touchdown and both threw an interception, if I remember right.
Well, your memory's better than mine. As soon as you said Kyle McCord during the spring game, I thought I just remember I wasn't that impressed with either one of them. That's all I remember.
That's what I mean by them being the same guy. They're the same level of quarterback. So, but Kyle McCord looked better when he was playing that Minnesota and Michigan State secondary. My memory serves me right, those were his two last games or two of his last three games.
Yes.
And he lit up the scoreboard against Michigan State, as did every other Big Ten quarterback pretty much that played Michigan State this year.
Yes.
Yes. So when Kyle McCord did face a good defense, which Michigan is, I say it's 2021 Georgia-esque this year. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I've been using that we're 2021 Georgia-esque defense. McCord looked like an average or maybe just a good quarterback, not an elite quarterback against Michigan.
Okay.
And I think that's the chance we have against Jalen Milroe. If we can pressure him like Texas did into making bad decisions, maybe Michigan can win this game. Although I am worried, like I was worried for the last 3 years against Ohio State, I'm worried anytime we face Alabama and Georgia, that do we have the firepower to pull it off?
Yeah. Well, Jalen Milroe and Kyle McCord, in terms of a comparison, throwing the ball on short and intermediate routes would be a good comparison. McCord has probably been better for most of the season, but Milroe's gotten better. Now, throwing the deep ball, McCord's a good deep ball thrower, but Milroe's an elite deep ball thrower. He's got a cannon, and it's just not like he just wings the ball 70 yards and has no idea where it's going. He's an accurate deep ball thrower. And then, of course, where there's no comparison is that Jalen Milroe is one of the best running quarterbacks in college football, and Kyle McCord is practically a statue.
Yes, but didn't Kyle McCord look like a good deep thrower on that 3rd and 19 against Notre Dame?
Okay, I wasn't really considering that a deep throw, but that's a deep throw. It's a 25, 28-yard throw. That was an excellent throw. I did say that he's really good, but he's not as good as Jalen Milroe. Like, I mean, chucking it downfield. I mean, throwing the ball deep down the seams or throwing a post, a 9 route. Jalen Milroe, I don't know that he has an equal in college football right now. Maybe Quinn Ewers. Well, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I've seen Quinn
Michael Penix. Those guys.
Yep. So yeah, I see if Michigan can put up as good a defensive effort as they have in their best games this year, and that includes putting a lot of pressure on Jalen Milroe.
Yep.
And JJ McCarthy has a knack for winning ball games, I believe. And if he can come through for us with both his throwing and his legs, I think we have a pretty good chance. And I think that's reflected in the point. Those 2 points are reflected in that the money line hasn't really moved that much. Is that there's still a lot of people, including big investors, that believe in Michigan.
Yeah. So as soon as you mentioned the big investors and the sharp money then I can believe in those people. The general public, I don't trust the general public betting on anything. Most of them have no idea what they're doing. They know
Right. A lot of them, a lot of that money is color of uniform money.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, when you talk about the sharp money, yes, Michigan has maintained its status as a slim favorite.
Yeah. And have you ever heard of Mattress Mac?
No.
Okay, I got notifications on him. One game he lost $44 million on a bet.
Okay. Doesn't sound too wise.
Another notification, I heard that he won big. It didn't say the amount, but I suppose it was 40 million or more.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the money we don't hear about a lot. So
yeah,
we're in agreement here. There are sharp investors that see something in Michigan. I think it might have been Isaiah Hole looked at an analysis, an advanced analytical stats of 145, and 110 or so went to Michigan, and 35 went to Alabama.
Yeah.
So
let's also understand that what was the point spread of the Ohio State Michigan game last year?
You mean in 23 or 22?
Last year in 22.
In 22, the point spread, I think, wasn't Ohio State favored by 3 or 4?
Well, yeah, not to prolong this conversation. Ohio State was a touchdown favorite last year, and they were more than a touchdown favorite the year before. And we know what happened. So my point is that Vegas is really good at what they do, but let's not overstate their accuracy. I think what makes Vegas so good is that when they do miss, it's not like everybody can say, we told you so. We knew when that was going to happen. People are just as surprised as Vegas is. So I need to run, but Keith, I appreciate the call.
Yep.
And certainly call back anytime.
Yep. Good. Great show as always, Mark.
Thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate it. And I'm going to read off some super chats, and Tim is going to post the call-in numbers. So here's the deal, folks. So I apologize to the two people that are waiting on StreamYard, but we announced this a number of times 15, 20, 25 minutes ago that we were taking no more calls, and I took 2 more. So we're not taking, or we could just be here all night. So we are going to post the call-in line, and we're going to wait your calls there. So please call there. And if we get a call from Dan or from DeAndre, we will take those calls. I don't know. Tim probably can't determine that. So he's just going to take them in order. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for your calls, we are going to look at these super chats that just came in here. So we've got one that Tim's going to love hearing from Vandy Dandy. Reggie Bush should get his Heisman back. Tim, do you have the Reggie Bush slide? If you've got that somewhere, we could throw that up there. Tim's on a campaign to get Reggie Bush back his Heisman. So, yes. Then we've got John. Thank you so much for being here. John, as always, make sure to hit the Amazon link and merch store. So that's very nice of you, John. Thank you for that. And John does a remarkable job for us on the Michigan live show. That's every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So please make that a part of what you do each and every week here at the Voice of College Football. There it is. Give Reggie his Heisman back. Yes. Whoops. Let's clear this deck here and give Reggie his due. So this is Tim's campaign right there. And I'm sure many of you USC fans are on the same campaign. Reggie Bush, one of the greatest of all time. All right, folks, please give us a call. You see it on the ticker down below. 888-997-4539. Again, on the ticker down below, 888-997-4539. All right. In the meantime, we will check out the most recent super chats that have come in. Again, John, thank you so much for reminding everyone the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos when you shop on Amazon. And I'm sure that you want to do some post-Christmas shopping. There are some deals out there now. Use the Amazon link that we provide. And I think that catches us up, actually. I thought that we had some other ones come in, but we did not. So in the meantime, we will check out some of your comments in the chat. And also keep in mind that what we attempt to do here during the off season at the Voice of College Football is make the call-in line available, because we know that many of you are either just in a place where it's difficult for you to get through on StreamYard, or it is just more comfortable for you to call on the phone. So we would like to make that available to everyone. Yes, the Amazon link's in the description section, and it's also right there where John posted it. All right, where are we? We are happy to be joined tonight by Joel Klatt. Joel has joined us tonight. Joel, good to see you. Mike G, isn't Ryan Day an offensive-minded coach? Yeah, he couldn't scheme up anything tonight on the fly to get anything done. Yeah, that was a miserable offensive effort by Ohio State. That was offensive line first and foremost, and it was a quarterback again who has attempted 5 passes in his collegiate career, but it was more pass pro along the offensive line. So that is, to me, the biggest concern for Ohio State in this offseason is getting that offensive line fixed.
No worries. I'm
Hey, Mark, we got Dan on the line.
Nice. Thank you, Tim. Dan, how you doing tonight?
Hey,
Hello,
Mark.
Dan.
Pleasure to be with you, man.
Yes. Thanks for calling.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We got you. Can you hear
Hey,
me?
thanks for having me. I can hear you just fine. Thank you. Just want to let you know I'm a longtime Michigan fan. Looking in my YouTube a couple times a week, and you're about my age, and I go back to growing up Bo Schembechler, and I am your mirror image, friend. Except you're much better at this than I am. Okay, just let you know that hey,
there's
man,
a long list
I
of
thought the
things
Bucks
that you're
played well
better
tonight.
at than me.
Bucks played well tonight. I think you're getting better. Not that you need to from a Michigan fan, but just so worried the McCord left you guys. I mean, I'm disappointed in the whole transfer. Kids are leaving teams early, and it's just disappointing that they're not sticking it out. And I think you guys would have rolled in Missouri with if kept McCord and still had your starting quarterback from the season, whoever it was. That's point number one. Point number two, the SEC is the evil empire, Mark. And, I'm hoping Go Blue can represent for you Monday, but it's been a weird year. I live down here in Plano, Texas area. Been cheering for the Rangers for 20 years. The Texas Rangers won the World Series, Mark. I've been cheering for Detroit Lions for 50 years. The Detroit Lions are in first place. Weird things are happening this year. This could be the year Michigan wins the playoff game.
Well, Vegas believes Michigan has a good shot. I believe they have a good shot. I got to admit, and this is going to spoil at whatever point I'm making a prediction, that I just can't figure out a way that I'm going to predict. Not that I don't see Michigan winning the game. It's not that I don't believe that they can win the game. It's that I just don't believe the best prediction is for Michigan to win the game. I just see different ways in which, and maybe January 1st, New Year's Day, is going to slap me upside the head and show me that Michigan has gotten to a place where they will rule college football and be the best program and the best team. And they will be able to get it done. There's a few, and I'm not a believer in history dictating what happens on a field between 18-year-olds on a given day, but I believe that there can be historical things that are still in play now. And I believe, until proven otherwise, that those things are still in play, like Alabama elite recruiting and talent, like a coach in Nick Saban that prepares a team as well as anybody we've ever seen with 4 weeks of preparation, and a quarterback who may be at the point of emerging into superstardom that has an extra gear and extra talent, a dynamic ability and skill level as a runner that could make plays that could be the difference.
Yeah, the kid is talented, no doubt. I kind of want to steal Steve Gase's line that I think Michigan is the Gonzaga in this one and done NCAA football playoff run right now. That Alabama, with their 5 stars, are relatively a young team, and their quarterback is very talented. But I'm hoping he's going to make those first-year quarterback mistakes. Not that he's a freshman. I'm just saying this is his first year as a starter, and I can see a kicker coming Michigan's way. And that's where I think Michigan wins the game, as we jump out on top. And I think Michigan can run the ball, mixing in the pass with JJ, and just move the ball. I think we can ball control them if we can get a lead. That's my recipe.
The recipe has worked for Michigan football in the Big Ten. I don't know that it works in this one. I think it's going to be awfully difficult for Michigan to run the ball in a traditional sense against Alabama. I think J.J. McCarthy has to be a willing and often runner. I think he is going to have to run the ball more often, maybe than he ever has in his life, and play the best game of his career.
I agree with that too. JJ has to be the best player on the field for Michigan to win in Pasadena.
I think as well, Dan, Michigan needs to take advantage of those 2 tight ends that they have, because I think those guys can make plays in the passing game, and they're a nightmare, a matchup difficulty for Bama, as opposed to the wide receiver. Not that you can ignore the wide receivers and just relinquish that and say, well, Bama's got arguably the best corners and our wide receiver core is just decent, so we can't threaten them. You can't back down from that.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Matchup. It doesn't work. You become too predictable. But most likely you're not going to make a ton of plays on the outside with your pass receivers. But if you make key plays and big plays, then your receivers don't have to make 9, 10, 11 catches. They could make 3 catches. Roman Wilson could catch 3 or 4 balls that could be huge.
Yeah, Roman Wilson needs to be our Wes Welker. He has to be moving the ball, cutting across the middle, getting open. Anyway, pleasure talking with you, Mark. Sorry to see Ohio State lose tonight. Even us Michigan fans cheer for you occasionally. We do. Go Blue, man.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the call. I want to remind everyone who's calling on StreamYard that we're going to the phone lines tonight for the back half of the show. And so, again, the ticker is showing you the number at 888-997-4539. Anybody else up, Tim? We will let you know. Michael, who has called the show via StreamYard, you can call the number right there on the ticker. Again, 888. I got to wait for it. 997-4539.
Yeah, Mark, we have Jack from Lansing, Michigan.
Nice. Jack, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad. That fellow kind of took some of what I was going to say. I'm a Michigan fan, but I was rooting for Ohio State too.
Yeah, a lot of Ohio State fans get on me for saying that from the time I was just a little tyke, 8 years old, nobody told me to do this. I did not grow up in a sports family. I just became a sports fan by myself. I don't know how. I just liked it. And something between my ears told me, or in my beating in my chest, that I'm going to root for Big Ten teams during bowl season. even if that's Michigan.
Well, SEC. Now I'm 70 years old,
Yes.
and I remember the SEC sticking together way, way back, as far back as I can remember, and they always have. And I think it had to do with some cultural things that were going on in the South at the time. But, and I think it has actually helped them, and I think it's been a strength.
Well, there is no question. I worked in SEC country for 7 years covering SEC teams. So I just wasn't down there working, doing, accounting or something. I was covering football and sports in the SEC, covering 3 specific universities in the SEC for 7 years. And yes, I got to see it up close and personal that they all root for each other. And that's a real thing. They chant at the games. We all hear it on TV. I witnessed it in person on a regular basis. And then when you travel in the postseason and you go to NCAA tournament games and bowl games, you get SEC chants. Yes. I actually do think, though, Jack, that even though it might be a distant second, I think that Big Ten fans are second on that list of conference pride.
Well, I don't know about that. Maybe. I guess I never thought of it in the context of other conferences besides the SEC and the Big Ten. But
I do, because I don't hear ACC fans.
Why would
they care anything about their conference? Pac-12, I think there's a Pac-12 solidarity there to a certain extent. And the Big 12, it's kind of gotten away from them with so many changes.
But for so many years, even now, this is a sport where the impression people have, rankings, et cetera, less now than it used to be. But it used to be the image and the impression people had, made so much difference that it just seems to me like it makes more sense to be, play them real hard when you've actually matched against the other fellow, but they're your conference, and the better they look, even if they beat you, the better they look, the better you look. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Sure.
So anyway, I have no idea what's going to happen in the Rose Bowl. I'm just going to root for Michigan, but those games can sometimes turn on something you never foresee, like the one team having fumbles, all kinds of stuff that that a lot of times the game will end up turning on things that no one even predicted.
These teams, just generally in college football, not talking about these 2 particular teams, but just there are less turnovers in college football than there were years and years and years ago. So I would be a bit surprised if there were more than, and I'm sure this is a prop bet in Vegas, the number of turnovers in the game total. I would think that the over-under would be somewhere around 3.5.
Well, anyway, good talking to you.
All right, Jack. Thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
All right, Tim, let me know if we've got anyone else. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, everyone. Leave your comments there in the chat. Super chats are, of course, welcome. You can also hit us up at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And we will take a few more calls. People are urging Joel Klatt to call in. Yes, we would enjoy that. Michael Hogue has called StreamYard. You can call us in as well. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Go ahead, Dave.
Hello.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Mark. How you doing?
I am doing great. It's been a while. How you doing?
Hey, yeah, have you heard the latest from the Caliprut? Caliprut is a NCAA last investigation. Have you heard about that?
The latest from the NCAA investigation?
Caliprut. Caliprut is the organization that takes all the
Okay.
the film from all the college football.
Yes.
Caliprut takes it. Have you heard that?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I haven't looked into it, but you're talking about the NCAA investigation about unauthorized college football film access, right?
Right. And Caliprut, that's because when they interviewed all the Alabama and Michigan players, some of them said, "Hey, we have to take our film, and we can't take it on our iPhones or iPads. We have to take it to our facilities. The coach is looking at it because something's going on. Something's wrong." Michigan players even said that too as well. They said, we can't look at our iPads or iPhones on game footage. We have to go to our facilities and coaches. Did you read that?
Again, I've not looked into it. I know that it was something I was going to look into, but I haven't been too engaged in the sport the last few days. So
Yeah.
but I do know that Michigan.
Well,
I did see some clips with Alabama players who said that that had been addressed.
Right. Then the link is back. Somebody's breaking into the Caliprut. Caliprut, again, that's an organization that takes all the film footage and gives it to the organization, the football, for their input. But the concern is the allegation is that Ohio State because Caliprut has Ohio State managers in that run that organization. But again, why are Alabama and Michigan players not? Because all throughout the year, if I'm a player from Alabama or Michigan, I go home, I can look on my iPad or on my iPhone and start reviewing film of the organizations. But both Michigan and Ohio and Alabama said now players don't do that. You have to come in and look at only that by the official, the players, coaches. That's highly unusual, and both Michigan and Ohio State have done that. In the biggest game of the year, they said that.
Yeah, so we're not going to know anything until this gets vetted out and investigated all the way through. And I really don't have anything to comment on. Is there something that you've come to a conclusion on?
Yeah, well, I mean, Caliprut. If you even Google Caliprut right now,
Yep.
this is a breaking issue, Mark. That Alabama now has been forced to use their coaches, not their iPads and iPhones, to look at the images that Calput used to put, and Michigan as well. They said that McCarthy said that. He said, JJ said, wait, 2 weeks ago we can't look at our own iPads or iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And something's linked there, Mark. That Calput, this was Calput, and Ohio State. Something's linked there, and I'm just saying this is going to be a big issue. And for Alabama players to say throughout the whole year we'd be able to go home and look at our iPhone and our iPads to look at game footage, but now we can't. We can't because during the CFP we can't use it. Michigan as well. They're saying the last 2 weeks we haven't been able to look at our iPhones, because of this issue. It's a big issue because players, main players from Michigan, Alabama, Washington, Texas, been able to look at their iPhones and iPads, looking at game footage, every play. Hey, game films. We can look at this. Now Alabama, because of this, is restricted to only look at this. They can't use their personal iPad or iPhone. They have to go in to at a facility,
Yes.
to look at game footage, of this because of this Caliput issue. I'm just saying it's going to be somewhat of an issue comes down the road, I think.
Yes. Well,
you have the floor.
Well, I'm just it's simple. So I'm looking at the article right now. So let's go through it very briefly. So Catapult, company that handles video footage for college football programs, said on Friday that the NCAA is conducting an investigation into an allegation. So it's not confirmed, but there's an allegation that an unnamed college football program gained unauthorized access to those materials. So that's what's being investigated. Now, we could go through it beyond that, but that's basically, so it's an allegation. And then if the allegation's true, then somebody, that's a serious offense in gaining the access to those materials, but we don't know which college football program that is.
Right, Mark. Well, what I'm hearing is through unnamed sources, that it's Ohio State, because Ohio State past employees or members are Caliput.
Yeah.
I just say that's the issue. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we don't know it's an issue. That's
what.
Yes, regardless of whatever school it is, whoever's affiliated with whatever school, whether it's Ohio State or whomever, they need to be reprimanded to the highest degree. As soon as we understand what they've accessed and how, to what degree, it's similar to the Michigan thing.
Right. And again, all this would be solved, in my opinion. Would be if you had access through helmets, where the
Sure.
offense, defense, one
And that's what
defense
they were testing out this
person
whole
and one
season.
offense person to get the signals. And this would all be eliminated. But catapult, this catapult crap, with them, it's a fuzzy, great organization that provides film to other college organizations. This is going to be an issue because during the Rose Bowl interviews, both Alabama and Michigan players have mentioned what
Yes, we know, Dave.
what extraordinary access they had to do.
Yes.
Where before at home, I was Jalen Melrose with my iPhone could look at the
Yes. We know, Dave. We've
plays
gone through this a number of times now.
played by Cowput.
So it needs to be investigated. It's being investigated.
Or JJ.
Do you have anything else?
JJ could do the same.
Okay, Dave, one of two things here. Do you have anything
Yes,
else
sir.
to bring up? Any other topics? Or do you have any further information or insight or thoughts concerning this situation?
Yeah, my input. Yeah, yes. All this could be resolved by this catapult not providing additional information. They be exiled, and the secondly, helmets and being able to call plays.
Yes.
Versus signal. Okay, that's it, Mark. But I don't think this catapult issue has been advertised as much as it should have been.
Oh, it's going to be. I believe it's going to be. It's the first story on ESPN.com's college football page.
Right. And that's why I'm saying
it just came out today.
Right. Catapult is a big deal, but because they provide, the film.
Yes, we know, Dave.
College football teams.
Yes. All right, Dave. Do you have anything else for us?
Right. No, but this is the first I've heard of it.
Okay, that's the first anyone's heard of it, unless they've got some kind of inside sources. It just came out today. But thanks for the call. Call back anytime, Dave.
Okay, thanks.
I appreciate it, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Mayor. Happy New Year, Mark.
Happy New Year to you, Dave. I appreciate you calling. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dave. All right, we've got Shoelace Sooners here. How about that? Thank you, sir. How long before the big football conferences break away from the NCAA? Oh, my goodness. Well, they attempted to do it 40 years ago. Georgia and Oklahoma. The NCAA, right now, they serve the purpose of following up on investigations. They follow up on leads and they investigate. So I don't know. They're really not dealing. I don't know that they need to do. Does there need to be a breaking away of the NCAA? As long as they are doing their due diligence in following up on allegations and leads to investigate programs, and they become solely a disciplinary arm of college football can manage everything else in some other manner. I would advise college football to break away from the NCAA, to evaluate the NCAA and what it's become now, which is just completely a disciplinary committee organization. It is not the committee or the organization that it was meant to be decades ago when it was supposed to be leading college football. The disciplinary portion of that was just supposed to be one aspect of what the NCAA does. Now that's largely what the NCAA does. And if the powers that be, whether those are the conference commissioners, that's what it is right now. Those are the powers that be, the conference commissioners, deem the NCAA to be effective. I can answer this question, to be effective in handling investigations and handing down penalties, then the rest of the sport can be managed by some cooperation between those 5 conferences when it comes to scheduling, NIL, transfer portal, and all the things that are involved there, and can dictate then to the NCAA to say, you don't set our rules, we set the rules. This is what we will allow, and you will simply investigate the leads that are given to you and recommend penalties. If you have any usefulness at all, that's what it's going to be. But we will structure our own sport the way we want to. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but that's what I would advise for the powers that be that run college football. And that's basically the 5 conferences, those conference commissioners, and by some extension, as it pertains to schools themselves, those administrators, chancellors, presidents, where they care about that, and they care about the prestige and the good standing of the school, and they care about money. So where it involves those things, they chime in and they have an active role in those things.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hey, whoever called in, there were 2-3 people called in, and I'm sorry, I had a little technical difficulty. I actually had you muted. Go ahead and call back in. I'll get you guys right in. But we have Michael online right now.
Oh, awesome. Michael.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, sir?
I am doing just fine. How you doing tonight?
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Pretty good. I remember when I said that Purdue had their worst game since like the General Air when they played against the pathetic against Syracuse earlier this year.
Yes.
Did that kind of look like Ohio State tonight, in your opinion? And I didn't get to see the whole game. I just seen bits of it. But it looked like Missouri was just, I mean, yeah, it was a tight game. But when did Missouri open it up?
Oh, they scored 2 touchdowns like in the last 6 or 7 minutes of the game. Ohio State was winning most of the game 3-0, and then Missouri scored 2 touchdowns late.
Yeah, from what I was reading everything, it seemed like it's like they can't even, from what I've been seeing, except from what I've seen, it looks like Ohio State can do anything tonight.
No, they couldn't. They would string together 1 or 2 plays, but that was about it. They couldn't put together any explosive plays. They had 2 what you would consider explosive plays. They had a 25-yard run, and they had about a 25 to 30-yard reception. Then they had another one that was about a 25-yard reception. So they had 3 what are technically explosive plays, but they didn't change anything. They moved the ball from the 25 to the 50. But yeah, Ohio State's offense was anemic, and that's for 2 basic reasons. Number one, their offensive line, the run blocking was poor, and the pass blocking was even worse. And the quarterback got hurt the second series of the game or so, and they had to play their 3rd string quarterback. And he didn't play that poorly. He just didn't have any time.
Yeah. And what was up with Missouri? From what I read, they had some big plays. They just couldn't capitalize or something.
Who couldn't capitalize on what?
Missouri. I heard they had some like deep passes or something. They just couldn't, when they get down there and stuff, they couldn't get nothing going until the 4th quarter or something.
Neither team could do much offensively. There were only about 100 yards of total offense in the first half.
Wow. So does that say more about Missouri's defense than Ohio State, or was it just an anomaly, in your opinion, tonight?
Well, Missouri's played good defense the whole season, most of the season. So that's one thing to take into consideration. We already knew that Missouri had I don't want to sell their defense as a great defense. It's a really good defense. It's got one of the 15 best defenses in the country, but it's not, I don't call it elite, but they've been good. but Ohio State played a quarterback who's thrown 5 passes in his career. So that had a lot to do with it.
Yep.
But Missouri's defensive line did win this game. They dominated Ohio State's offensive line. Those are the two things that decided the game. That Ohio State's offensive line was garbage, and they had a inexperienced quarterback who's thrown 5 passes. I would like to know the last quarterback who has attempted 5 passes in his career and defeated a top 10 team at any point in the season.
Yeah. So what game are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Well, what games do we have tomorrow? We've got Ole Miss and Penn State. We've got Auburn and Maryland. We've got Florida State and Georgia, which if they were fully manned on both sides, that would be interesting, but it's not because most of the best players are not playing in that game. I guess the Ole Miss Penn State game.
Mm-hmm. How surprised my last thing before I let you go and stuff, because I gotta go to is when was the last how surprised were you about Brock Bowers?
What about Brock Bowers?
Opted out, not playing in the game tomorrow.
Yeah. What about it? Hello, Michael. What about Brock Bowers? Yeah, he's not playing. He's one of the best players in college football. It's a very odd situation where he actually, as a tight end, almost the offense runs through him at times. He's that important. But
yeah, I think he lost Michael. He dropped.
Okay. I don't anticipate Georgia to have an issue with Florida State. Florida State's just missing too many players, and Georgia's that good. It's a combination of the two. All right. Who do we have up next here at the Voice of College Football?
Mark, we got Blake from Michigan.
Nice. Blake. Hello, Blake. Blake, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, my bad. Go ahead, Blake.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you, Blake.
Hello.
Hi, Blake.
Hey, what's going on?
Can you hear me?
Hey. Yep, loud and clear. Full disclosure, Michigan fan, but just got done watching that game, and I'm just curious to know, what are your thoughts going into next year for Ohio State's quarterback room? And I guess considering how this game went tonight, how do you feel about like the opt-outs or opt-ins at least? And what are are they going pro? Who's staying? Who's going? I guess what are your expectations for next year?
Yeah. So in terms of the guys that have a decision to make, the first 2 guys that come to mind, I got to think JT Tuimoloau is gone. He's going to be a high enough draft selection that I would be surprised if he stuck around. Cade Stover is gone. He's going to be a high selection for a tight end. Jack Sawyer, he's an interesting situation in that I don't believe that he is the player that he needs to be to move on to the next level. However, he had a big night. He had like 2.5 or 3 sacks. He had a big night. Now he walked into a few of those. So I don't want to disparage his game. He played well, but as we all know, some sacks are different than others. One, he wasn't blocked at all.
JT helped, and I think the other interior guys.
The other ones, he was pushing the pocket. He was running, but somebody else forced the quarterback into him. So he had a nice game, but if they really watched the film, it wasn't some remarkable game. And it's one game. He didn't have a season that you would think somebody that is a 5-star that you would think would want a stronger entry into the NFL would be happy with. So I would, I don't know what these guys are deciding. I'm just taking a guess. Denzel Burke's gone. I can't imagine he's coming back.
Yep.
I'm trying to think who else has a decision to make.
Hall?
Mike Hall. I've got to think that, he certainly can be mid to
And Hancock,
later
maybe,
down.
but I can't think of anyone else
Jordan Hancock.
other than Emeka Egbuka.
Emeka Egbuka should be taking off as well. Now, Travion Henderson, I think he's going to come back.
Henderson, yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge one. That is a huge one. And
Yeah. Yep.
you know, except for the motivation to play one more game with your guys and try to win a bowl game, those guys were coming back, I think, to put one more big game on tape, and they
On
didn't.
tape. Yeah.
Henderson didn't, and
Oh,
it
the
wasn't
defense
his
did.
fault. But he had a couple nice runs. But
I think the defense did.
yeah, considering
not
that,
so much the offense, but how can
Yeah,
you really
considering-
judge anything with how the O-line played?
yeah, absolutely.
mean-
Considering Missouri was fully stocked and they had no opt-outs that I'm aware of on offense, you know, they had their number one runner who led the
I
nation
mean, that
in
was the Super
rushing,
Bowl, yeah.
and Luther Burden at wide receiver. And really, they did very
Mm-hmm.
little until the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. So the defense played extremely well.
So I guess setting up to that, what are your expectations going into next year, knowing the easier schedule? Is it an automatic 12 playoff bid, or could you see
Easier
3 losses
schedule,
next year? Yeah.
and you're basing that on them not playing
guess-
a good non-conference opponent.
Well, I mean, they have 3 tough games: Penn State, I think Oregon, and Michigan.
Yeah, so that would be tougher than this year. So anyway, it's generally the same schedule. They didn't really get hammered with
Yeah.
a super hard. They only got one of the 4
In comparison
teams
to
out
Michigan's
west.
schedule, or
Yeah. Well, if they don't reach a 12-team playoff, then that's a disaster.
yeah.
Now, will they reach that inglorious style as a Big Ten champion with a bye in the first round and a 12-1 team, or will they reach it as a 10-2 team that lost to Michigan again? And then if that's the case, then Ryan Day is going to need to do some serious damage in the playoffs to keep his job.
So I guess, do you expect them to go to the portal at quarterback, considering tonight?
That's a great question, because I wasn't necessarily recommending this going into tonight, but I was just putting it out there as a thought that I think college football fans in this day and age, with the portal and all the number of quarterbacks that are out there, become enamored with portal quarterbacks and the possibilities of picking up a quarterback who they can see has numbers and experience versus the uncertainty of playing a quarterback who has no experience. And that going out and getting Cam Ward or Riley Leonard or
Will Howard.
Will Howard, yes. That certainly, there's a sense of comfort to there being somebody who's proven something at this level versus being completely inexperienced. However, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, none of those guys had any experience. So if they are recruiting the right quarterbacks and they are developing them, then they should be able to start an inexperienced quarterback next year, whether that's Air Noland or that's Lincoln Keenholz or that's Devin Brown, and they should trust their recruiting and development. And if none of those guys are ready, now Air Noland's a different situation. He's going to be a true freshman. Then there's some kind of problem, because I don't see these guys, and I might be wrong on Cam Ward. I think he's the one possible elite quarterback that, with the right talent around him, could really elevate to become one of the best quarterbacks in college football. But these other guys are good quarterbacks. Absolutely. They're an improvement. There's a couple guys that would be an improvement over Kyle McCord, and I think Will Howard's one of them. So I'm not like saying that they shouldn't go out in the portal, but just the thought that going to get one of these portal quarterbacks is the answer to all the problems. And then if they start a quarterback who's inexperienced, like that, then that's not the answer. I don't necessarily think that's the case. And I think recent history has proven that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
I
I'm
mean, as a
sorry,
Michigan
I
fan,
should have continued on this point before I let you go. That I think it's more important that they go out and get offensive line help in the portal.
yeah, I think it's needed. Yeah, I don't know. I think as a Michigan fan, I'm happy that McCord transferred because I think 1 year in that system, I think he looked good enough to make that leap next year, kind of like how JJ has this year. And so from a Michigan fan's perspective, I think I would have been not so happy to see McCord just leave because I think despite not having Marvin Harrison, I think it was clear and evident that McCord probably wouldn't have looked that bad. In fairness to whoever they had starting, I know it was a third string, but I hope that doesn't come back to bite Ohio State because I think it could. But you never know. So
yeah,
but thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely, Blake. Appreciate you calling. And I'll just continue on that note to say,
yeah, no, go ahead.
That some of the things that we come to a conclusion on, of course, we're just conjecturing, but it's logical conjecture at least that if Kyle McCord landed at Syracuse, it's not like he turned around and landed at USC or Clemson or somewhere like that. He landed at Syracuse. So what is that telling us? Is that telling us that he is not valued as a top flight quarterback? Does that tell us that maybe he wanted to be guaranteed a job and so he didn't want to go fight for a job at a better school? So he went to the very best situation he could find that he knew, I am going to be the starting quarterback. Do we think that Ryan Day really pushed him out the door, or did Ryan Day simply present him with a situation to say, you did not earn a guaranteed starting spot this year. What you earned is simply to be one of 2 or 3 quarterbacks to battle for this job, and you're going to have to win it again. And that wasn't good enough for Kyle McCord. None of us have the answers to those questions, but they're one of those. Those are the options of what reality is. One of those things. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Tim, do we have another call coming up here?
Yeah, we do. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello. Sorry, I tried to grab it fast. Why don't you grab that super chat? See if they can hear me.
Erica, thank you so much for the contribution. Thanks for saying hi tonight. Patience of a saint again. Happy New Year, Mark. I was telling some of my family this week who don't, of course, they're not listening to college football talk, about some of the folks that we talk to here on a regular basis, and they didn't view me as patient. They couldn't believe that I told them that I get a little bit of credit for many of you for some patience. So we do our best. Shoelace coming back with this one. Yep. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so I believe I answered Shoelace Sooner's question about the NCAA, and that's how I see it, at least. But we can only have any hope in getting to a good place in college football again if there is a governing body over all of it, not these conferences waging war with each other and looking out for only their own best interests. And I'm not faulting the conferences nor the conference commissioners, because that's what they're paid for. If you hired me to run the Big 12, I'm not looking out for college football. I'm being paid by the Big 12 to run the Big 12 and to do the best by the Big 12 and its universities and its athletic programs. But so that works against itself. We need a governing body that can govern the entire deal. And then the SEC brings its best interest to the table, and the Big Ten and all these conferences, but then the governing body does what's good for everyone.
Yeah, we got a call, Mark. It's Hank, South Carolina, but not a Gamecock. We have a Clemson Tiger on the line.
All right. Hank, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark. Yeah, so it was a pretty exciting bowl win there.
Yeah.
Obviously not the season we wanted, but we actually outgained pretty much all the teams we played this year. We may not have outgained Kentucky, but I think for the most part, up until now, we pretty much outgained everyone, including Florida State, a game we should have won. But, I'm still kind of disappointed about that game. But, made the best of it, 9-4, considering all the adversity we had this season. It's a good way for them to rally. So, an interesting stat is that Auburn, Georgia, Clemson, Florida, and Florida State all have 3 national championships, which is, all southeastern teams and all have 3 natties. So it's a good company to be in. As far as the future of the, the CFP, I think that eventually it's going to be a 16-team playoff. Do you agree?
I think.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me, Hank?
Sorry. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think what we're running into in terms of the number of games and teams added is the physicality of the sport. Because otherwise, I'm right on board with you. I think that as the playoff is a success in terms of popularity and revenue, that there's only going to be more of a thrust to add more games to it and more teams. However, there's a nature to the sport that's unlike basketball, baseball, and other sports and the self-interest involved in the athletes that are moving out of the NFL, looking at their longevity and wanting to protect their interests. And so that would be, I think, the only thing that would fight against the further expansion of the playoff.
It doesn't actually add any more weeks, though, to the schedule. All you're doing is taking away the bye weeks from the teams that were the top 4 seeds or whatever.
Yeah, I understand
that. Not adding any more.
You're adding
so
more
I don't
games to more athletes. You're adding
but I mean,
possibility. Well, it's not a possibility. It's going to happen, but to whom it happens to, we don't know. But there are going to be 4 other teams that are playing more additional games.
Yeah, 1 extra game. I just think eventually it's going to go to 16. I do like the proposal that the NCAA president had, where all the teams that are willing to pay their players, the $30 to $50 million that are going to be required, they would be in one, upper division, and then the teams that don't want to would be in the lower division, and they would have separate playoffs. I think ultimately that would be the best solution. And then you could have 2 different national championships, a sort of a professional one. You'd have different names for them, but I think, and then the teams that don't make the playoffs could play in bowl games or whatever. Because in Division I AA, they have actually a 24-game playoff, a 24-team playoff. I mean, so I don't see 16 as being that much different than 12. That's
true.
Just my take on it. And I just, plus that way it gives everybody that wants anybody that wants a chance, if they're willing to pay their players, they can play with the big boys. And, if the Potato Mafia up in Boise, if they want to like take Boise State to the big time, they can. I don't think it's going to happen, but at least it gives every program a chance. And because I think if you start excluding teams, then you're opening yourself up to lawsuits. And we've seen before how these all these congressmen and senators want to start like throwing around lawsuits and stuff. And I really don't think the sport needs more lawsuits. I think there's already too many as it is.
Well, I would like to see 16 teams because I don't think that the buys now. Well, at the time that the 12 team was proposed and accepted, of course, we had 5 conferences. So I was against the buys because there was no reasonable way to determine who earned the buys. We were going to have a committee determine. But now that we've got 4 conferences, well, then it automatically falls into 4 buys to the conference champion. So I've got much less issue with that than I did before. But the 16 teams obviously make it just, well, then you eliminate the importance of a conference championship for one thing, because everybody plays the same number of games.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. One other thing, as far as Clemson goes, I would actually prefer that the ACC stays together, even if Florida State leaves. Let them go. I don't really, because to me, like, okay, for instance, this year, if Clemson was undefeated, they don't get left out of the playoffs. I don't care what anybody says. Based upon recent history, they've got enough cachet. And Florida State's been out of the loop for winning for so long. I think that had a lot to do with it. If they had been a perennial CFP contender, I don't think they would have got left out. I just think that the fact that, here's Florida State, how good are they really? They should have lost to Clemson, and then they lose their quarterback, and they use that as an excuse. But I don't see any way Clemson would have got left out in that scenario, based upon the fact that they've been to so many CFPs and have won a couple of national championships very recently. What's
So
your
do you
take
think
on
that
that?
that's just? Do you think that's right? Or you
I
just
don't
think that's the way
think
it is?
that it's right, but I think that's just the way it is. And people were blaming it on the ACC, and I think it had a lot more to do with that. And then once you put that whole scenario of Florida State, like, are they for real? Is this a legit thing? Against, obviously the influence of Texas and Alabama. I just didn't, I could see it coming from a mile away that was going to happen. I'm not saying it's right.
Sure. So,
But,
yeah, what you're bringing up is certainly, I was just going to say, Hank, what you're bringing up is certainly nothing new in regards to speculation about the way these teams are selected and how they're viewed in regards to brands and recent history. But if I will say this, that if that committee is selecting teams based on brand and based on recent history of games not played in the year 2023, then they are absurdly incompetent and inept at their job. They're pathetic.
Without a question, I think there's zero doubt about it. I think they've proven their ineptitude beyond a shadow of a doubt throughout the years. But it's just, it is what it is. We're going to 12 teams, so I really don't. Now it's just going to be a difference between, like, maybe the 10th through 14th teams, or 10th through 15th teams, instead of like, a top team that's getting the shaft. But, I just think the whole thing about the ACC was way overblown. It's just Florida State's saw like a thing to try to get out of the ACC. And, good riddance to them, because honestly, they've been nothing but a headache and the pain in the butt since they've been in the conference. And if they would just take Miami with them, I think that the ACC would be a lot better conference without those 2 teams. And, they can go to the Big Ten, and you guys there can deal with them, because, Florida State fans are the worst. They are literally, like the Shooter McGavins, from Happy Gilmore of the college football landscape.
Okay.
Their fans in their university are literally Shooter McGavin.
So let me ask you this, Hank.
This.
So
Yeah.
try to be as honest as possible and take your Clemson colors off as much as you possibly can in answering this. Do you think your opinion of Florida State fans has anything to do with you being a Clemson fan?
Well, I live in Clemson, and I have to deal with the Florida State fans when they come here. So, and I have to deal with all the ACC fans, and they're by far the worst. It's not even close. I've never met another fan base that's anywhere even a tenth as bad. And then based on all the stuff that's come from the people in the what? Oh, just like they have this they just like this arrogance, man. It's like so hard to pin, but it's just like the way the energy they put off, it's so off-putting. And like, especially, in a place like South Carolina where everybody's so friendly and nice, and like, it's just a complete shock to your system when they're always saying like, we're the nicest people. And it's like, yeah, we're nice, but it's like, they don't, because they think we're nice because they have to deal with themselves all the time. But, honestly, because if Clemson's in the ACC with the 12-team playoff, if they lose 1 or 0 games, they're going to get in the CFP every year. And I think they have a much better chance of doing that than if they go to the Big Ten or the SEC and have to play that kind of schedule every year. It's more likely they're going to lose 3 or 4 games. And that doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. I would much rather just keep dominating. And then when we get to the playoffs, we've done really good before. I think we can do good again. And I just don't see the ACC as being a bad thing. If we ditch Florida State and Miami, it's not so bad. I'd rather stay in the ACC.
So everything you said makes total sense in regards to the objective of football. But once you put money into that, number one, money in and of itself. Number two, the money that then could impact the football and earning $40 million per year in TV revenue versus 80 or 85. Then once you throw that into the equation, what are your thoughts about staying in the ACC versus going to another conference?
Well, we were 17th in overall revenue. A lot of that had to do with the fact that we made about $39 million in the personal seat licenses. Basically we got this thing called IPTAY where you have to pay into it just to have the opportunity to buy tickets. Even if you're just buying one ticket, you got to pay into this thing. And it goes anywhere from $60 all the way up. And we were able to generate $39 million based on that. And then that's close to what we made from ESPN and the ACC network. So it's not, we're 17th overall in athletic revenue. So that's not like that far behind. Yeah, okay, maybe but compared to Ohio State, but we don't, it's not like we play Ohio State, we don't really have to worry about them unless we play them in a bowl game. And we are 4-1 against Ohio State, sorry, I had to mention that. I would much rather just stay in the ACC. I just think that all this thing of breaking up conferences and stuff, having these super conferences, it's kind of nice that basically all our games, except for Cal and Stanford, but we only have to play one game there every 2 years, are basically all within driving distance. I can't even imagine being in the Big Ten and never being able to go to any games unless I'm going to fly. And, with flying, that's so inconvenient. Who wants to do that anymore? Going through airports and stuff and
Sure.
Just the hassles. It's like, I could pretty much drive to any Clemson away game I want to.
Absolutely. All right, Hank. Well, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, no problem. It's a little bit unusual take, but it's like, I just want to see Clemson keep winning a lot of games, and I just don't know that going to the SEC and Big Ten's in our best interest. So,
yeah, well, it's a different take, but it's obviously very informed, so we appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great one, Mark.
You too, Hank. Thank you. All right, Tim, why don't we take calls from whomever's on the line, and nobody else, please call in tonight, but we'll take whoever's been waiting.
All right, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this Tim?
Yeah, you're on with Mark. Go ahead.
Oh, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, what?
This
Really
is,
quickly, what's your name? Where are you calling
the
from?
infamous Joe Long.
Oh, okay.
Joe
Joe.
Long, California.
How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Am I on the air right now?
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Holy mackerel. Well, I call in. Actually, it's not a real positive thing. I'm getting worried about what it's going to be coming. I think we're talking a lot about these playoffs and everything as they're coming up, and I'm in favor of having a lot of teams. I just posted in the chat that I think if you treat every game as a playoff game in your regular season, that'll make the games meaningful every game. But that's not really why I was calling. What I'm really kind of concerned about is these opt-outs and transfers and things like that. So far for me, I've been really bored with the bowl games. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to be sitting out in these Final Four teams, but it's just a real concern of the watering down now of my favorite sport next to hockey. I love college football. So to see these guys opting out, you're not getting the teams at their best, and it's boring.
So, a few things here. Number one, we don't have any opt-outs in college football playoff games. That has yet to happen. So we don't have that. We are in our 10th year in the college football playoff. We have no opt-outs. So I'm not saying that won't come, because players are going to be looking at 3 and 4 game playoff runs. So we could have that in the future. Now, I will ask you this, Joe. I'm sorry, what?
I said I wasn't talking so much about teams opting out. I'm talking about the players opting out.
Of course, the teams have not opted out. No players have opted out of any playoff games in the history of the playoff.
Do you think that's going to stand up? That's going to stay that way?
No, what I said after that was we're going from a situation where we have only 1 or 2 playoff games being played to a 12-team playoff where you have to win 3 or 4 games to win a national championship. So it's not going to surprise me, and I've stated this zillions of times ever since the 12-team playoff was announced, that it would not surprise me for a player to say, you know what? I've got to win. My team has to win 4 games to win a national championship. I am not willing, as a first-round NFL draft pick, to risk 4 games of injury, and I'm opting out. That would not surprise me in any such way.
Well, that's pretty disheartening, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that's very good for college football.
No, it's not good at all. Now, that is yet to happen. I'm just conjecturing, but I think it's pretty reasonable.
It is. I agree.
Now, let me ask you this, Joe.
Very concerned about it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So your team played today. They won easily. We did not see the best Notre Dame team. We did not see anywhere close to the best Oregon State team. I know at one point in the game, somebody caught a pass, and it was mentioned that Notre Dame was missing its top 4 pass receivers. Obviously, one of the best running backs in the nation, Audric Estime, and its starting quarterback. And Oregon State had a litany of opt-outs. Do you think that if you just watched that game and didn't know who had opted out, you just watched the quality of the game, that you could tell a difference between the quality of what you watched today versus other Notre Dame games? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was boring, and these are name players that you're not getting to see. Although, that kid Faison, who was only a freshman, and he was lacrosse? He was a lacrosse player, and he's like their best receiver. He's like their leading receiver, and he's only a freshman. And he was a walk-on, So, I mean, that right there tells you just the kind of what we're looking at in the future. It's like, here's an example of a kid that wasn't even playing last year in high school. He walks on, to the lacrosse team. He gets approached by a coach to play football. And so then he's a leading receiver for the team in football. I mean, that's where players are opting out and transferring. And all of a sudden you have a kid like that come in and be a star, right?
Yeah. So you are getting a look at your next team, your 2024 team.
Yeah. Well, I like the depth. I mean, since Freeman came in, he's 2-0 in bowls now, and that's a nice thing. And he's 9-3 and 9-4, and then 10-3. So, the quality of the recruits we're getting are a lot better than they were. Apparently, we've had this last year. We had 6 guys in the top 107, I think, according to one poll. So I'm thinking that's like something Brian Kelly never did. Brian Kelly was always happy with a mediocre quarterback, and you win a bowl game and you get a pat on the back. He didn't care the bowl game. He just wanted to win a bowl game. He didn't want to win the big game. And you could see the way the team was prepared in a lot of the games when Kelly was coached. I was a little surprised at Ohio State. I didn't think they came out to play today. I'm talking about your team. I think was it Missouri? I think they wanted it a little bit more. And the same thing with Notre Dame. I think over Ohio or Oregon State too. They wanted it a little more.
All right, Joe. Anything else you want out of me?
Yeah. No, I just I felt a little bad for you today because of it must be such a weird concept for you to not have like such a like you have been blessed with superior quarterbacks for the last 15, 20 years, right? And all of a sudden it's like today showed that, boy, when you don't have a quarterback, what that does to a team is just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, they also didn't have an offensive line today, so it was difficult to
Was it a lot
evaluate
of players?
The third string quarterback.
Yeah, that's the shame of what's coming in college football is that the kids are going to sit down in the most exciting. It's the total opposite of what we used to watch college football for. It all built up to the bowl games, and now you get to the bowl games, and it's this worst part of the season.
You are right. It is exactly
What is
opposite. Yep. I used to love the bowl.
Yeah.
I still love the bowl games, but I used to love them because if you won a Cotton Bowl 30 years ago, that was huge.
Right.
But nobody cares now.
I know.
All right, Joe.
We got to fix this. All right, Mark.
I don't have the answer, but
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you calling.
All righty. Take care. Bye.
Have a good night. All right. Tim, if you want to queue up the next one, I'm going to grab these super chats. We've got Devontae Swirls here. Appreciate you. Few analysts say J.J. McCarthy will have to play the game of his life for Michigan to beat Alabama. I just said something like that about a half hour ago. How do you think that game is going to go? Well, I will make a prediction on the game here in the next few days. I will state this. Number one, the only teams that have defeated Nick Saban in the postseason have been special teams with special players. Trevor Lawrence, Clemson. Deshaun Watson, Clemson. That 2014 Ohio State team that was just an NFL team. Zeke Elliott, Michael Thomas, the Bosa's just loaded. Every defensive starter in the secondary was a first-round pick. The 2021 Georgia defense, a great modern day defense. Otherwise, Nick Saban just rolls through everything. So I can't get past, it's difficult to get past that postseason advantage of just for 15 years showing up every year, never playing a poor postseason game. I mean, never. You could argue the 2018 national championship game, but otherwise, either they win them all, they win 80% of them, and the 20% they lose close, and they lose to what turns out to be just elite, special, generational talent. So that's tough to get by and to think, is Michigan on that level? The other thing to take into consideration is that the teams that have won national championships in the last 20 or 25 years since recruiting rankings have been top 2, 3, 4 talent teams in the nation. And Michigan right now is number 14. And the lowest that's won a national championship in the last 15 or so years has been those Clemson teams with those generational quarterbacks, and they've been in the top 10. Now, the one disclaimer to that might be Michigan's additions in the transfer portal. That's a new element to all of this, and those have been substantial. And then I will go to the quarterback position, and Jalen Milroe being a much different deal, much different dude than anything that Bama has seen, Michigan has seen this year. But I appreciate the contribution. Lemansky's here. Thank you for that, sir. Good morning. Only offline for a few days. Mark, feel good about your following tonight. You were one of the few who early on recognized Phil Parker talent. Nice having you back on the job. Well, Lemansky, thank you so much for that. I did do a little bit of work while I was gone. We did record a few segments with Alabama and Michigan, and we did do our Ohio State show on Wednesday. But yeah, generally off since Saturday. So, or Sunday, whenever. So, Lemansky, thank you for that. Appreciate you being here. Always appreciate your support. Oh my goodness, Shoelace is back. Shoelace, thank you so much for the Christmas present. I don't mind that it's late. Thank you for that, Shoelace. Thanks for all you do, Mark. Shoelace, thank you for what you do. Thank you for all your support. Appreciate you. And I believe that catches us up. So thank you for those contributions. Do we have anyone else on the line, Tim?
No, that's it for tonight.
Okay. I'm off the hook. 2:38 a.m. Eastern time. All right. This is a good time to shut it down. We've been on the line for over 3 hours. There we go. Tim, thanks for making the call-in show go for us.
Yeah, no problem.
Everyone, head on over to the USC channel. Tim and Matt went live tonight with call-ins. That's always entertaining. Those guys can slice it up on USC and dice it better than anyone. So check out Matt and Tim over on the USC channel. And we will be back with another edition of Trojan Conquest live on the USC channel this week coming up. Of course, New Year's Day is Monday. We typically go live Monday night. So we'll move the show next week to another time. That's why it's important, of course, to subscribe over there on the USC channel and get those notifications, as the same holds true right here on the main channel. Please subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Folks, we've got an SEC channel, and you can find the link in the description section right here. And we also have a Big 12 channel that we have both launched. And I know I'm done when I start talking like this. The 3 hours have worn me down. But the SEC and the Big 12 channels, please check those out. And we'll be back throughout the day on Saturday with all the various bowl games. They kick off at noon. I believe we've got the Peach Bowl game between Ole Miss and Penn State at noon. And I believe we've got couple games running somewhat simultaneously, noon and 2, something in that range, and then a couple at 4 and 4:30. And Barstool Sports, they jump in with their oddball bowl game, whatever it's called, with Wyoming and somebody I can't come up with right now. Somebody out of the MAC, I think. So that one's going on as well. But no nighttime games with, am I getting this straight? I don't believe there are any late night games on Saturday. I believe the NFL takes over. And when the NFL says get out of the way, college football has always gotten out of the way. All right, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football again. We will be here. I will post the schedule for Saturday. We will be here, so lock it in, and we will see you soon. Thank you all for your great support. And it's almost 2024, and we will take you there right here at the Voice of College Football.
Really quick, Mark, you had enough calls that